site plan, elevations, architectural details, wall sections. Staff presents staff report. We will then ask for public comment. Following your presentation, the commissioners will be asking questions in the same order as the presentation. Please state and spell your name clearly if you are here to speak for or against a project. Your time will be limited to 3 minutes, so take some time now to summarize your comments because 3 minutes goes by very quickly. Following public comment, the applicant will have 5 minutes for rebuttal. The public hearing will then be closed. The only comments which will be allowed after the public hearing is closed will be in response to any questions from the commissioners. The commissioners will then discuss the case and will make their decision based on the city ordinance, chapter 27 of city zoning code, the design guidelines, the Secretary of Interior standards, design review comments, and the testimony given at this public hearing. The BLC can only act on items that are within our jurisdictional responsibility. Owner agents are independently responsible to obtain any appropriate permits and or approvals. If you haven't already done so, please silence your cell phones. And we'll start with introduction of commissioners to my left.
Good morning, I'm Lee Nguyen.
Good morning, I'm Eric Schiller.
Good morning, Jose Jalotz.
We also have with us today Dennis Fernandez, Ron Vila, Beverly Jusak, and legal Jared Simpson. For the meeting minutes of April 23rd, we need a motion to approve these.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion in 2 seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting minutes are approved. Thank you. Announcements.
Good morning, Commissioners. Dennis Fernandez, Architecture Review and Historic Preservation Manager. Welcome to today's hearing. In accordance with our rules of procedure, we do have our annual election of officers that will take place this morning. Currently, Commissioner Thompson serves as your chairperson, and the vice chairperson position is vacant. So we will begin with the chairperson and seeking nominations to fill that position for the next year.
Move to nominate Commissioner Thompson.
Seconded.
Okay. Any other nominations? And is Commissioner Thompson willing to fulfill that role for the next year?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So we'll have a vote on that, please.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Congratulations. Next, the vice chair position, which is currently vacant. Any nominations for that position?
Move to nominate Commissioner Nguyen.
Seconded.
And Commissioner, are you willing to serve in that capacity for the next year?
Aye.
And then with that, we'll affirm with a vote, please.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Congratulations.
Vacancy filled.
Vacancy filled, just like that. Next item of business, we did have a disclosure on one of our cases today. That would be ARC 19-82. We do have a conflict of interest that needs to be disclosed at this time on that case.
This particular project is being produced through our office, so I will have to recuse myself from the case, which will not provide sufficient quorum.
Right, with Commissioner Thompson's recusal, we will lose quorum for that particular item, so that in accordance with your rules, that item would be automatically continued to the next public hearing, which is July 23rd.
We need a motion.
No motion necessary.
No motion
for that.
necessary? Okay, thank you.
Okay. And moving on to the next item, continuations. I'll ask Ron to come up and handle that. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ron Vila, I'm staff with Historic Preservation. Under continuations, we have one reflected on the agenda is BLC 19-61 for the address of 1718 East Columbus Drive. That request was by the agent to continue to a future date, so they would have to repost at that time 30 days prior to coming to this board. If we could get a motion for that continuation, please.
Motion to continue case BLC 1961 to a future date.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Since we already did the ex parte communication and conflicts of interest, we'll move to the swear-in. Everybody that wishes to testify, please stand up and raise your right hand, including staff.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you provided this morning is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. So moving to the first case, which
Excuse
is
me,
the,
I'm sorry, Mr. Vila. We did talk about one specific conflict of interest, but I don't know that we asked the board more generally about all the other cases. Were there other conflicts of interest or ex parte communications regarding any of the other cases on the agenda? No. Okay, thank you.
you.
Just wanted to clarify that.
yes, sir. So moving to the first case is BLC 19-80. This is for the address of 3008 North 13th Street. Currently, it's a vacant parcel with a YC8 zoning classification. The request is new construction for about a 1,350 square foot primary structure with site improvements. We'll start with the vicinity map. This is the historic district of Ybor City. Reflected in the red outline is the boundaries of the district. The district used to end on the northern face of Columbus Drive. This was the expansion area in 2013. I wanted to reflect the location of this parcel, as indicated with this arrow over here. It's towards the northern boundary, which is 21st Avenue, and it is on 13th Street. This is moving to the Sanborn map, showing the inventory back in 1929. Property in question is highlighted in the green box. It does sit in the corner of 13th Street and Holmes Avenue. As I indicated, this was the northern boundary to the Ybor City Historic District. So Holmes Avenue, 13th Street, and then you have 20th Avenue to the south. If you look on the Sanborn map, it does show a front porch that wraps around to the corner, which is reflected on the application this morning. The aerial sometimes provides additional information. In this particular case, it shows a large grand tree with a canopy that encompasses that site. Once again, you have 13th Street and Holmes Avenue. This is looking at the parcel, showing the tree here that will remain. There was some conversation with Natural Resources that shows that the house needs to be set back so the tree and the new construction could live in harmony together. Currently, there's a chain link fence that surrounds the property that will be removed. This is looking at the corner. Back into the site, you see the canopy of the tree and the sidewalk. Now looking at the northern property line. Back into the site once again. Showing some of the fabric of the surrounding properties. The majority of them are single-family homes. Have a front porch engaged. Some have enclosed the porches over time. Just so you get a feeling for the area. And then to conclude with a couple of street shots. The street's very wide. There's ample parking, parallel parking on the street. This is looking down 13th Street towards the north, back into town. And this is looking down 13th Street, which is the front of this structure, as it dies into 21st Street, and that's the Centro Estudiano Hospital. That concludes the photo presentation. I'll have the owner and the agent come forward at this time.
Good morning, Commission. My name is Francis Margillo. I am the owner. I'm also a licensed realtor. I'm also the builder of this project. This will be my second project in this historic district. I met here a little over a year ago to do a project similar, a little bigger house. which we just wrapped up now, so we're just completing that. I've met with Ron Vila, I'd say 3 or 4 times on this project to go over everything. We actually met at the site as well to go over the tree and my concerns with the tree and not cutting it down and things like that to, accommodate that corner. So it's certainly been, thoroughly planned, and this house was certainly designed for that specific lot with the tree in mind. To jump into the
So jumping into the site plan here, as you can see, we have the structure here. There is an existing driveway that exists going here in the back of the parcel already, which we were going to, of course, save, because it's not beat up. There's really no reason to destroy it. I mean, there's really no other place to put the driveway as well, being that we do have this tree here. That is the 36-inch oak tree that is present that Ron was mentioning with the umbrella there. But this would be the driveway for the home. Again, it exists off of homes. It actually, this whole parcel was included a double lot at one point with this house, and they have a structure in the rear. So, and it appears that they are renting this out. So it looks like at one point this driveway was being used for that apartment. Obviously, that's not going to be the case moving forward. My intention is to put a privacy fence up to separate the two and use this driveway for the new structure. Again, you can see here we have the wraparound porch to accommodate the tree, walkway in the front, everything done historically. We have the scoring in the driveway and the walkway. This will be, being that this was a solid drive now, we wanted to add 3 foot because it's only 6 foot wide currently. We wanted to add 3 foot to make it the complete 9, which is required. And we're going to score it historically as an apron driveway with just the center being filled, if that makes any sense. To give it the historic look, of course, and keep it appropriate. We have all our mechanical will be here on the side hidden, so it's not seen from either corner. We have, of course, there is the chain link fence that goes there now around the corner. We are going to take that out after construction and possibly put a white picket fence. That's the intention, again, with the privacy fence on this side. There is a little bit of trimming to be done with this tree. Again, I have pictures that I'll illustrate here in a moment with natural resource showing what pruning is allowed and acceptable for the structure. Okay, and then if we go into the elevations, front side elevations, here we have the house itself. Again, period appropriate. The house is going to be all wood stick built. It's going to have an elevated floor system. The house will be built on piers. It's got all lattice covering the underbelly of the house here. All hardy siding, which will be smooth 5-inch exposure. All the trim detail. We have 5 inches on the sides here, 7 in the center of these 2 windows. Which, if we look here, you have the 2 windows in the front. You also have all singles in the sides and in the rear. But it does show a 5-inch trim on the side, 7-inch in the center, with a 2-inch reveal for the sill of the window itself. We are using a architectural shingle for the roof. It's all exposed overhang and soffit with beadboard. It's all 2x6 tails exposed with a 2x8 fascia for all your fascia boards. Again, this is all things that I've gone over with Ron. We have a 2 foot by 2 foot piers and columns in the front holding up the front porch, all brick veneer, period appropriate. I have samples of that if you'd like to see them. Let's see here. We have the windows, of course, are going to be a wood gel window. They're a low E double pane handmade window, and they have an aluminum clad on the outside, and the inside is a true bare wood. We have the gable ends are all natural vent. There is going to be a ridge vent on the structure itself, but these are functional vents made of wood, of course, hand built. We also have
We have for our front porch, we are using a traditional 1x4 tongue and groove decking, which again is period appropriate. It is pressure treated. For our caps, of course, the front walkway of the house is here. We do have welcome walls on each side with a 4-inch cap that matches the 4-inch cap on all our columns. Let's see, as far as elevation from grade, we wanted to keep it consistent with the rest of the structures around. And again, I'll show you illustrations here in a moment. All the houses around seem to have 4 steps, keeping them, as far as the height, about the 28-inch range, which is what we've done. We've kept our front porch at 28 inches, so we're staying under the 30-inch for not having a handrail. Again, also staying consistent with the fabric of the other homes. And then to get into wall section here. Again, just to kind of point out some things, we have showing the front porch here through the side view. It does show a true wood beadboard in the ceiling of the porch. It shows a true beadboard in all of the overhang, the exposed overhang. It's going to be a 2-foot overhang, of course. We have, again, showing out the Owens Corning architectural shingle. Ceilings are to be 9-foot ceilings. As far as color, we are going to use a light green that's, of course, approved through the palette that Ron provided, the color palette, with a white trim. I do, again, I'm not sure if this matters for color purposes, but I do have, this house will have corbels holding up the front and rear gables. I do stain them. Again, I can show you pictures of the one I've done before. I don't know if that is necessary. I think that's about it on that. If you'd like, I can show you pictures and show you some samples. Pass them up there. Pictures? Yeah. So just to kind of dive in here to these photos of what we have done already. As you can see here, we have, that's the mentioning of the stained corbel. It's, of course, wood, we stain that. This is going to be your siding around the window here, from giving you a side profile, just showing you that true 1-inch reveal, which was very important to accomplish that. This is kind of going into the piers with the veneer brick, showing you an actual corner with the lattice to represent an actual true column as it is. Again, showing you just the actual corner itself. We got 5-inch on this side, 5-inch on this side, with a 5-inch exposure on the smooth hardy. This is an illustration of the decking. Again, 1x4 tongue and groove, pressure treated. This is before it was painted. It's painted a little darker gray currently. Again, showing you kind of a double window here, with the 5-inch on the sides and the 7-inch in the center. 2-inch reveal sill on the bottom. And here is kind of giving you a close-up of our overhang, showing you the beadboard, which is kind of hard to see here on the side, but the white is the beadboard there above the corbel, and on the left you see the porch roof, which is stained to match the corbels. Again, beadboard. And here's a little bit more of a close-up of a window. It's just trying to show you that sill with the 2-inch and the 1-inch reveal, and also showing you a corner of the structure. Again, I show you this just to kind of give you an idea of exactly what we're doing here moving forward. It's going to be the same materials used. Front door. Front door will be a true wood door, 8-foot. As we show here, a similar doorknob, black, satin. And this is just showing you on 13th, the same street, a couple of examples of where we got our inspiration from, very similar to the house we're proposing. Same brick pattern, the columns, the front elevation, again showing you 4 steps, keeping it consistent with what we have. Here's one here showing you an actual wraparound porch, which is obviously very similar to what we're doing here with the roof line. Again, on the same street, front elevation very similar, with the brick and the bump out for the porch, the columns, the corbels, the vents, very similar, also 4 steps with the welcome walls. Again, another one just showing you the wraparound porch. This one actually happens to be a carport, I apologize, but it does show the same roof line, very similar to what it would look like, but instead of a carport, it would be a wraparound porch. Again, same street, this is actually 2 houses down, very similar color to what we're proposing. Of course, this one does have the rail that they've added, but it is 4 steps, very similar with the brick pattern. This illustration here shows you natural resources mock-up of what pruning will look like. They actually had me go to the property and stake out where the structure would be, which shows you here, if you can kind of see my stakes and my lines, to show natural resource where the structure would be, and then, of course, in red is where the pruning will happen, and the green will stay for that tree. And this is just the front facade of the house we just did, just to kind of show you the front of it with the stained corbels. Very similar front facade, just having the wraparound porch added to it. And of course, I have a brick veneer corner, just to kind of show you that. And a piece of the decking here if you needed to see that on your roof. And that concludes, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioner Ron Vila. I'm staff with Historic Preservation. Staff's finding that this application is consistent with the Ybor City Design Guidelines with the plans that were submitted on April 5th, 2019. Since those plans were submitted, we have our conditions that are attached to your staff report on page 3. I was going through his presentation, and Mr. Margilio went through the majority of these items. When we first met on site, I think it would be important to discuss the tree in question there. There's some discussion with previous people looking at this parcel to remove the tree, and the tree is a huge asset for the community, much like for this parcel as well. So we met with Natural Resources out there, and you saw the information that was passed from Natural Resources to the agent as far as keeping the tree. The proximity of the house sits a little bit farther back than the block face of the rest of the houses because of that tree. On the site plan, what was presented was acceptable to Natural Resources, so it becomes within the protective radius of the grand tree, but with air spading as this project moves forward to expose the roots and the piers in an appropriate location. Natural Resources is comfortable with what was presented today. On the plan that we looked at on April 5th, there were some inconsistencies with the walkway and the stoop coming up. The modifications have been made to the plans that you saw today. Also, there was it was lacking some fenestration on some of the elevations, and he incorporated additional windows on the elevations that were presented today as well. Another concern when you come forward with infill property is elevation from grade. I believe the information was presented with 4 steps to be consistent with the properties that abut it or in the surrounding area. So having said that, I believe this presentation is consistent and a complete presentation, and it's ready for final. I'll be here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ron. Is there anyone here from the public regarding this project that wishes to speak regarding it? Seeing none, we'll move to commissioners' questions. So I'll start on my left.
Thanks for the presentation. Could you go over quickly the material for the gable vents?
What was that? I'm sorry.
The gable vent details, could you just go over that real quickly?
Sure. So in the gable vents here, it is all built of wood. You're going to have, of course, this is your gable truss, which sits flat up against the back of this, literally being nailed to it. So it'll be behind this fascia, but it is all wood built with a 1x4 pressure treated wood.
Great, thank you.
And of course, we have to put a screening behind it, a 3/8 screening for, keeping insects and whatnot out.
No further questions?
I have no questions.
Thank you for a very comprehensive presentation. Just one quick question. The columns seem to be a little bit sort of spindly based on the historic patterns of the neighborhood. You showed a previous project. Are those the same ones
They
that
are.
you're proposing here? Okay, did you consider, in your walking around the neighborhood, did you ever consider kind of modifying those to give them more of a historical reference?
As far as when you say, you mean making them wider, or?
Right, or sometimes they're canted a little bit. They just become more of a distinctive architectural feature.
Well, interestingly enough, the last time I was here, we actually had them at, I believe it was 1.5 foot. And one of the suggestions that you guys made was to make them 2 foot and also extend my overhang, which we've done and incorporated into this one. But to be honest, I haven't thought to change that. I just figured it looked consistent. It was one of those things that worked, and if it works, I figured I'd keep it the same.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
You were referring to the wood portion of the column?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks for the clarification, yes.
So I think that, to follow up on his comment, we're comfortable with the 2 foot pier that you're showing. I think the spindly comment comes for the wood portion, where you usually see those items, or those columns flare out a little bit and have a little bit more mass to them, going from the top of the masonry to the bottom of the roof.
Yeah, so that's an 8x8. It's going to be, as far as the crown on it, or the base on it, we could certainly dress it up if that's what you're referring to, or you're saying make the column itself wider, the wood itself wider.
The wood gives you the opportunity to make it different, because you're going to have the structure, and then you can see them tapered sometimes in the neighborhoods, depending on what's around there. That's the sense of the
I
concept.
understand
Right.
what you're saying, yeah,
Right.
okay. Yeah, it's just a personal preference. I just like the look of the straight, narrow,
Yeah.
clean, I guess.
So, okay.
That's it.
So, that's good. Okay. You had mentioned a white picket fence eventually. Is that something that is proposed currently, or is that part of your material palette?
It's not on there, to be totally honest. It's something I spoke to Ron about briefly. It wasn't set in stone. It was just something that I think would accommodate the corner. It was kind of an afterthought, to be honest. But it's not proposed on the plans now.
Okay. The rear elevation, if you could go to that.
Sure.
There's do you have a plan of the inside?
Floor plan?
Yes.
I do. I didn't actually have it mounted because I didn't think you guys would actually want
Okay.
to see the floor
Well-
plan, but I can hold it up for you. Be happy to.
Just go to, you can point at the rear elevation and see what I'm
Sure.
getting at. That door and that window are very tight to the door is right on the corner.
Yes, sir.
And the window's jammed up next to it. And it's really, I think, one of the only times we see that kind of detailing and spacing in this project. Do you have a little bit of room in the inside to where you can steal a couple, half a foot here, half a foot there, to give it some, balance on that elevation? Or at least a little bit of relief?
We currently don't, to be honest. That's why we unfortunately had to kind of smack it up against that door. Because of the way the floor plan works out, this is actually a laundry room, and there's a wall pretty much almost up against that window. I guess I could speak with my architect and maybe try to rearrange some things to really, it's something that Ron and I did speak about.
Right. Is the window essential for that? I mean, because I guess you could, if you only had the door there, you could move the door over and match the window on the opposite side.
Absolutely.
The right elevation, which is just above it, I presume that is the laundry room as well. You might have an opportunity to incorporate a window on that elevation, yes, right there, so that all of the windows and the fenestration on that portion of the building are a little bit more balanced. I mean, I think that I think that people are going to see that corner pretty well in the neighborhood, and kind of moving around the building, that those components get kind of jammed up there.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, we kind of incorporated the window to even up the rear elevation. I mean, but I completely agree. I think if we moved the door over a little bit, matching that other side for the window, and incorporate a window in the back, I'm totally for that.
Does the door have a window in it?
Well, this one does, yeah.
Yeah.
The rear door, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that it would be more appropriate to move the door over a little bit, keep the window in the door, balance that facade,
Yeah.
and not have to worry about these components coming together like that on that particular corner.
Okay.
And if you want to introduce the window on the right elevation back corner in a similar manner, that would be appropriate, I think, as well. In terms of the setbacks again, if you'll put the site plan up, I'm sure that you've tried to get the building as close as you can to the front, or to the front of the property line.
Yes. We did, with respect to the tree, again, the tree was really the determining factor for this lot, and the existing driveway. I actually made the size of the house to accommodate the tree in the driveway. I would like to have gone a little bigger. For
Right.
example, the last house was almost 2,000 square foot, this one's only 1,350. But to answer your question, the setback, yes, it's about 10 foot from where I staked to the base of the tree, with the tree in mind for all of the setback as far as the front.
So that 10 foot is the critical dimension
It is,
from the outside of the tree, the 36-inch oak, to the front of the column?
that's
Is that
correct,
what that is?
to the corner.
And that's the 2-foot pier?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So they're not concerned about the footing underneath there?
They want, have to air spade, of course, to expose
Right.
roots, to make sure we're not gonna do any damage, but yeah. And then Natural Resources is gonna wanna inspect that after I air spade.
Right. How far back off of the property line is that porch from the other porches in the neighborhood?
That's gonna be 20 feet from the actual sidewalk to the front of the porch. Which is about, ironically enough, it's about the same as the front build-to line of the rest of the street.
Mhm.
So the front porch will actually line up with the rest of the houses. I realize the front of the house won't because of the tree. But that porch does line up with the rest of the front of the houses. So it does keep some sort of dimension there if you're looking down it.
Let's see.
Yeah, if you see this house here, it's almost straight in line with that porch.
Right, and that line over there to the right of it is its porch, correct?
This here, yes, sir. Yep.
And your front door goes off to 13th Street and,
Yes, sir.
okay.
Yep, drive comes off of Holmes.
Just want to take that whole building and scoot it forward.
I know, yeah.
How old's the tree?
Old. I mean, the Sanborn map didn't have it, or at least didn't show it, so it must not be that old, but I'm sure it's old.
Yeah, I wonder if well, it'd be great to keep kind of the rhythm and the spacing of the street towards that,
Sure.
larger building at the end. Let's see, capital detail, corner stair. That's a complete wraparound porch that you have there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, no porte cochere or anything? Because one of the other projects that you showed had a stair that came down and kind of rolled around the corner. And I was wondering if on your project that was an appropriate detail for your corner lot.
On one of the examples?
Yeah, it was one of the references that you had. Just a question. Yeah, like that stair. It's a different type of detailing.
You're saying the steps, how they have that corner to them?
Yeah, the way that comes out and spills down a corner
Okay.
seemed to be appropriate for, or seemed to fit what you could do on your site. Just a question.
Yeah, I mean, the only issue with that is I'm up against that tree there on that corner.
Right.
Because this, if the front of my house were to look like this, my porch
Right.
wraparound would go this way, and then my tree is here. I would also be negating one of my welcome walls.
Yeah.
The biggest concern really was the tree. I mean,
Right.
that's why we threw that front entrance off to that side there to keep the walkway away from roots
Yeah.
and the entrance itself.
Understood. Okay. I don't have any questions, or any further questions. Anything else that you've heard that you want to provide a rebuttal to before we close?
No, I
the
mean,
hearing?
I'm not opposed to the idea with the window. I think that's a great idea with the door and moving that window to the other side. I have no problem with that if that's a suggestion. That's it.
Thank you. We'll close the public hearing. Commissioners will discuss the case, so start on the left.
Yeah, I'm glad you saw that little detail at the rear elevation. Didn't see it at the bottom of the page, but I think with that and maybe thickening up the columns, as Jose was talking about, I think it would be very appropriate for the neighborhood.
I have no comment, thank you.
I agree on as presented, the wood portion of the columns do look a little bit understated, but I'm gonna ask Ron, have you had a chance to see the project that's completed? What is your opinion? Because on the photograph you showed doesn't look completely out of place, but I also don't. Have you had a chance to do a site visit?
I have, and upon completion of all the projects, we go out, staff goes out and looks at it, the capability, and the success of the project. You know, in reviewing thousands of homes over my career with preservation, there's a series of dimensions that the columns and the piers have in the relationship. Sometimes the piers are longer and the columns are shorter. So I think with variety comes the success of the project. So he's done one of these, and this is the second one. If he was gonna put 20 of them in, then maybe variety would be needed.
see.
But I think with just the two, and they're separate by, 5 blocks, so they're not side by side either. So I believe they're successful as presented.
Okay. And the photograph we're being shown, that is the correct, that's
That's
what's
the
being
house,
proposed
that's the one
as
that they
well.
just finished, yes, sir.
Okay, it doesn't look, I mean, in the photograph it looks acceptable.
That door looks way out of scale.
There's a tiny-
Yeah. That's a good point. In this photograph, is the door in the project that's being proposed taller? Because it does look a little bit.
It is.
It is, okay.
That's one takeaway I certainly had from this project.
Yeah.
Everything else was pretty much perfect. When you step back and look at it, the door is
Sure.
definitely something that jumps out.
Okay.
So that's why the
Yeah.
8-foot door moving forward.
Fantastic.
Can you, just for our edification, put that elevation back up?
What's that?
The elevation, please,
Sure.
just to double check. Okay, yeah, the door head aligns with the window head.
Yeah, it makes a big difference.
Yeah, and so the rear door as well for the laundry room would be an 8-foot door. Okay, so all of the window heads and door heads will align.
Yes.
Right, okay, thank you. Okay, thanks. All right, I think we're out of comments and discussion, so we need a motion.
I'll move to make a motion final with conditions. Move to grant a certificate of appropriateness for the drawings and documents presented at this public hearing in BLC 19-80 for the property located at 3008 North 13th Street with the following conditions. That the applicant revise the rear door and the rear window as discussed at this public hearing, that the applicant provide and submit any proposed fencing for the property to staff for final approval, and that the front door reflect the one presented in the presentation and on the drawings. Because based upon the findings of fact, the proposed project is then consistent with the Ybor City Design Guidelines for the City of Tampa.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, you've heard the motion, you've heard the conditions that are attached to it. Do you agree with the conditions attached and as explained?
I agree.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate it, guys.
Commissioners, our next case is BLC 19-81 for the address of 1607 East Sixth Avenue. The primary structure is a contributing structure that dates back to 1908. The zoning classification is YC7. The request is for an accessory structure of about 184 square feet. There is a variance attached to the request this morning. And on the last page of your staff report is the statement of hardship addressing the need for the variance. I'm going to have the agent move forward with a complete presentation, and then upon completion, he will touch upon the variance. Starting with the Sanborn map from 1929, property in question is here. You see the primary structure was there. This is 6th Avenue, which is for the railroad. The primary structure does face the railroad tracks. You see the concentration of the brick structures that flank 7th Avenue to the north. You have 5th Avenue to the south. There is an alley that runs behind the alley. It is an open alley, it's unimproved, but it's here, and then it tees as it comes out towards the east. As it approaches 17th Street, it goes to the north and to the south. This is the aerial here. See some surface parking around the subject site with some residential structures. 6th Avenue, the railroad line to the north, and then as you continue 7th Avenue, and then to the south you have 5th Avenue, and the blocks in between are 16th Street and 17th Street. So looking at the simple modest home that dates back to 1908, facing 6th Avenue. Moving to the side elevation, which is the west. Series of single windows. And then you see the proximity to the abutting structure and to, this is the home site. The structure to the east, this one here. Abutting to the west, have an open lot. Directly across the street, looking from the porch. This is showing 6th Avenue. This is looking back towards 16th Street. It's a very tight road. This is turn around in the other direction. There is no access from 6th Avenue. And then moving around to the rear of the property, which is here. And then the condition of the alley. This is looking down the alley is in here. It's a 10-foot alley. This is looking to the east. And turning around, property in here, 10-foot alley looking to the west. That concludes the photo presentation, and the owner will address the board.
Good morning, Commission. I'm Frank Zolo, the owner of the property of 1607. Today I'm going to present my garden studio for you guys. Okay, cool. So here's the basic outline. It is going to be a small space. This is showing the well, I have the distance and everything, but just want to go over the concept with you guys. So basically what I want to do is just add a garden studio to the back of my house. I like being in my yard. I like being outside. So this is kind of what I'm going for here. Kind of give you the concept, a little bit more, kind of what I hope for it to look like in the future here with the plants. As you saw the bamboo in the picture, which is already there. Now the challenge was to design a space that was going to be, you know, with the 5-foot to 5-foot eave and having everything that I wanted. Now we got rid of most of the decking just because it didn't correspond, which I'll be able to show you in the rest of the drawings. So this is the back of it. And then conceptual massing, and then I have new elevations that these are my prior ones, so I'll go ahead and show you my new ones. And then you can see once again the back of the lot. And then the parking, which we'll get into after, how, as of right now, I can't even park on the lot as it is. But with that being said, I'll go ahead and get into the elevations, if that's okay. All right. So here you can see the setback from the lot line being, the minimum was 60, we got a total of 68 being where we are. We got the 5-foot eave to eave, and then I have the 3-foot from the fence line, which was also a minimum. And then you can see, what was that? We got an 8-foot wide by 22 feet, which is gonna give us about 170 square feet, which it will be a loft area inside, so I'll have a little bit more area in there. So this kind of gives us the outline of the dimensions based from the lot line, the fence, the back of the fence, and the distance from the house. So with that being said, I'll go into the elevations. So here's my previous house. Now this is the second project I've done in Ybor City. Me and my brother did one on 2317 East 9th Avenue where we took the entire lean-to off and we extended the A-frame, which is in the historic zone, so we're very familiar with the materials, the novelty siding, and everything like that that is going to go into it. So you can see here we're at 21 and a half, which I believe the height was 23 is the highest I could go. So I'm 21 and a half here. I'm a foot off the ground. I'm 5 foot from eave to eave. And then I have the large windows here on the property so we can let the natural light in because it is going to be a smaller space. So, and then the 3 feet, foot off the ground. And then you can kind of just see how everything else is. It's just 23 feet long. Grand total, the inside will be 22. And then you can see on the, I have 2 entrances on the back of the property. I have one on the side here, and then one here as well. And that's just, as you can see in my smaller drawings, just to let the light in and kind of let it flow because it is going to be a smaller space. And it's just something to be outside, something to kind of add to my property because I can't afford to buy another property, so I might as well just build onto what I have. So that's the elevations here. And then if you guys want to go into the parking, we can get into that, or do you guys have any questions? Or the variance for the parking?
This is your portion of the show, so we
Okay,
need
you got it,
site
yeah.
plan elevations, details, wall sections.
Okay,
describing
wall
the
sections, I
project.
got that right here.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, point of order here. Since the applicant is seeking a variance, and it appears that the decision on the variance will decide whether or not the project will be allowed to go forward for certificate of appropriateness, I think it would be a good suggestion to just address the variance criteria first and then have the board entertain that variance.
We'll hear the variance, we'll make a motion on the variance, we'll put that one to bed, and then move forward,
Okay.
if possible.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
So going with variance or, sorry.
That's okay. I think that's correct. Let's go ahead and address the variance and the hardships that you're facing on this particular lot. And
Okay.
we'll open that and then discuss it and see if we can get somewhere with that one.
You got it. All right. So I'll go ahead and just get right into the hardships. So here we go. So we got number 1 right here. The alleged hardship of practical difficulties are unique and singular with respect to the property or with respect to a structure or building thereon, and are not those suffered in common with other properties, structures, or buildings similarly located. And the residential plot is non-conforming because it's less than 2,500 square feet. So, and then number 2, the hardship of practical difficulties does not result from the actions of the applicant. A self-created hardship or practical difficulty shall not justify a variance. Once again, the residential plot is non-conforming because it's less than 2,500 square feet. And then number 3, we got the variances, if granted, will not substantially interfere with or injure the health, safety, or welfare of others whose property would be affected by allowance of the variance. A parking variance will in fact increase safety because no additional cars will be passing through the narrow alley, back alley, and other surrounding public areas. What you see through the pictures, it's kind of just like, just there. And then the variance is in harmony with the end serves general intent and purpose of this chapter and the adopted Tampa comprehensive plan. A parking variance will advance the goals outlined in the places, chapter page 44 specifically. The parking variance will promote walkability in the block and within the 7th Avenue commercial corridor. And then 5, allowing the variance will result in substantial justice being done considering both public benefits intended to be secured by the chapter and the individual hardships or practical difficulties that will be suffered due to failure of the board to grant variance. No variance will require a parking spot that does not meet the technical specifications of a parking spot and will thereon be unsafe and a violation of code. And finally, number 6, the variance, if granted, will allow development that is consistent with the design standards and compatible with the historic pattern of development within the historic district. Conservation overlay district, multiple property designs, or the local design landmark or landmark site in which the subject property is located. A parking variance will allow all current development plans with the comprehensive plan and BLC historic regulations to continue without impediment. So that is the hardship.
So at this time, I believe the board should focus on the variance, the hardship criteria that was presented into the record this morning. We do have John Marsh with Transportation that wants to address the board. All of the discussion should take place, the substantial and competent evidence that was entered into the record for this hardship. If the variance moves forward, then we could go into the certificate of appropriateness.
Thank you.
John Marsh, Transportation Planning. I believe I missed the swear-in.
You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you provide this morning is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. I always want to do a Boy Scout thing here. It's kind of a complicated case. Transportation finds the site plan inconsistent with Chapter 27-178-2B 8-3 because the code requires one space per single-family dwelling in the YC7 district. The site plan doesn't have any parking. However, staff has spent a lot of time on this particular project. The staff's determined there's no feasible way to accommodate the required parking to code on this site with the existing structure. Regardless if he builds or doesn't build, the existing lot is simply too small. So he still is required, when I reviewed, to provide this parking, even though it's not feasible. So therefore, my comments were he needs to do one of two things. One is come before you and ask for a waiver to reduce the parking from 1 to 0, therefore making it conforming because it had a waiver. Or 2, provide for off-site parking as allowed by code within 1,000 feet. We provided him the language, which is why you're here, why he's here. And we asked for him to clarify if he was going to do off-site parking, but we've never gotten that clarification because there are additional requirements for that. But I don't see any way, unless the entire structure was raised and a new one built around providing the one required parking space, that it would fit. There's just not enough back-out space. I'm not saying somebody in a smart car or a Fiat's not going to cram their way into that parking lot, but I'm not okay with that. It's got to meet code. So there just isn't, so that the alley's too short. It's just a very tight lot. So if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Any questions for transportation? I do have a question for the applicant. Where do you park?
So right now I have a parking permit through Ybor City where I'm allowed to park South Ybor. So actually I have a little map to show you. Check it out. So you can see right here. That's my house. And then there's residential parking right here and then all right here. So basically you just get a permit and it's as long as you, I own the house, so you can park there and I just walk over to my house.
Right. Okay, so question back to transportation.
Yes.
Does that satisfy your question?
It does not satisfy the off-site parking requirement, which is you need to basically have a leased space off-site on private property.
Okay.
That may enter into your decision for a reduction, but it cannot meet the requirement as written per code.
Okay, and then back to the applicant. You have no intent to pursue the off-site parking as described by transportation. You're looking for the waiver to go from 1 to 0.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, we're clear now. So, questions from, do we close the public hearing here? Or is there any other testimony for the variance that you?
I think it would be proper if, to allow the applicant to, maybe some time for rebuttal if there is
Sure.
anything to say in regards to the variance.
Is there any public comment that needs to be heard for the variance? Okay, well, let's do public comment first. If there's anybody here to speak on behalf of this particular variance request. I don't see anybody, so we'll move to rebuttal for what you've heard conversation-wise thus far. We understand it's a difficult lot. We understand that you have a parking pass that doesn't meet transportation's expectations for off-site parking, and you want to go from 1 to 0. So that's, anything else for that?
No, that's, no.
Very good then. That will close this portion of the variance hearing and move to the left for comments. Or,
I have no additional comments.
okay.
No, I have no additional comments, questions.
Just one clarification. When you were presenting the drawings earlier, I thought you presented a site plan that showed a car on your property.
Oh, no, that was just showing how a car, I got that one right here, just showing how a car wouldn't fit on the property as it sits right now.
Which is your property in that drawing?
This one right here.
Okay, because it looks like a car does fit.
It's the whole backup, the way it back up and moves and everything, because
Okay.
fence is right there.
Okay. Oh,
And I'm not sure exactly how wide is that 9 feet or 8 feet?
That is gonna be 9 feet.
Thank you. So he needs to have the 24-foot backup requirement, and even if he angles it, he just can't quite get the backup requirement no matter what he does. And then he still would need, like, I think if he did an angle, he still needs like side and all these other setbacks, so he's back to variances. I mean, there's no,
and a parallel parking situation.
no, I
that
mean,
wouldn't be
I think that
acceptable.
originally was, I proposed that, and it doesn't, there isn't sufficient side space to allow for the maneuvering in, so.
Thank you, that clarifies that.
Never has so much staff time been spent on something. Yeah, so.
Well, let's not belabor it further. I think we have information that we need to make a motion on this.
I'd like to make the motion.
Please.
This is for an approval on the variance without conditions. I move that the variance request for case BLC 19-81 for the property located at 1607 East Sixth Avenue be granted as depicted on the site plan presented at the public hearing for a reduction of parking spaces for this residential property from 1 to 0, based on the petitioner meeting the burden of proof with regard to the 6 hardship criteria set forth in Chapter 27, Section 2796D of the City of Tampa Code for ordinances for granting variances as stated and the evidence provided for this public hearing.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Since there aren't any real conditions attached to what you've heard thus far, are you comfortable with the motion? Okay.
Yes.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, let's move on to the CA.
Awesome. All right, so I'll go into the material list. So we got the materials here, and I also have them on the walls.
Well, if you can, we'll pick this back up. You've presented your site plan, you've presented elevations. Let's go into details and then wall sections and so, well, thank you.
All right, so wall sections. basically we have it all laid out right here. And forgive me for my architect not being here, so bear with me. So we got,
If you could just step to the side a little bit, present like a weatherman.
gotcha.
Thank you.
So here we have a tropical, no. So you can see, it's all wood, it's all gonna be historic, it's all gonna be novelty siding. It's, so you see the novelty siding, we're gonna have the drywall on the inside, the moisture barrier, plywood, setting. And then above is gonna be the metal roofing with the plywood decking and then the wood ridge beam running all the way across. And then the same as it's gonna be wood stairs, not gonna do concrete, so nice wood stairs so that, and decking so that the drainage, runs off historically. So I know that was one of the things everybody was worried about. And then interior wood floor, plywood subfloor, wood joist, and wood beam, and then my materials are all labeled. I have them all on the smaller projector. So, is there any questions, or I kind of answer that?
Well, we'll ask questions
Okay.
after you're done, so.
All right, so yeah, that's pretty much it. And it's all to historic. Me, like I said, I worked with Ron before, so we're not going to cut any corners on that. And then you can see the pillars, we're gonna be made out of wood, brick, novelty siding, all wood, everything that fits, the historic code.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ron?
Commissioners, this application is consistent with the Ybor City Design Guidelines. I'd like for the owner to present additional information on the doors and on the final color palette as well. With the completion of that, this application does satisfy the standards within Ybor City. I'll be here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Public comment for the certificate of appropriateness portion. Seeing none, we'll move to commissioners asking questions.
Yeah, Ron mentioned about the doors, but you could also go over the windows as well as the doors.
Okay.
And the color palette as well.
So the windows and the, so
You know,
yeah, so the window
Can I
that
just
we.
interrupt? I'm just getting confused because the drawings that you're presenting now don't appear to be the drawings that show on the elevation. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we just switched around the windows a little bit. I can run off the,
Well, I'm finding that very confusing as I'm trying to make a determination.
okay, I'll just go off
about-
the
Thank you.
plans here. Yeah, no worries. All right. Oh, I actually have a large picture.
Much better, thank you.
So just for everybody's clarification, before we jump into this, because what you present at the hearing becomes part of the record.
Okay.
That, what you're gonna show right now, is it currently.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Sorry about the confusion, guys. Yeah, so what we're gonna do here is use the historic windows, same as the ones that are on my house previously, all wood. And then the big windows in the front here, they're just gonna be, obviously hurricane-proof, all that good stuff. And then just gonna slide, just so that we can have more sunlight come into the space. Because we want it to feel like it's a part of the garden versus like closed off. So I want to be able to, open these up on a nice day when the mosquitoes aren't killing me and sit out here and kind of just like be, because I have an African Mastiff, I have two giant African Mastiffs and we're kind of outside all the time. So the house, I just want to be able to be outside. I want to be able to have these large windows, kind of let the light in, and then the windows that will be here will be to historic code with Ron going over all the plans, and then like the novelty siding, and then the wood, the color. I would really like, which I don't know if it's going to be allowed, would be able to use the raw wood and just seal it, kind of like really make it like and go real historic on it, because I want to do something like really cool that stands out. So that's kind of like a thought in my mind. And then if that doesn't get accepted, then I'll just paint it the same color that is my house, which is like a light bluish color, which has been there forever. So that's kind of my goal with the color.
And then you have no plans for any air conditioning or mechanical units?
Oh, yes, it's gonna have air conditioning, yeah. I'm gonna do, a little, like on the backside where the 8 foot is in between the fence and the building, I'm gonna put the compressor there. So it'll have light AC, it's not gonna be anything crazy, it's gonna be a small unit. And if I don't do that, I'll probably just put like a nice window unit or something really good in there. It's gonna look really good. But as of right now, I wanna go with, traditional heating and cooling, something like that.
Okay, no further questions?
Do you have a list of the plumbing fixtures you're gonna put in here?
Plumbing fixtures? I do not at this moment. I'm pretty much just gonna go with pretty traditional plumbing. It's all gonna be PVC, CPVC, and then just do everything to code.
Well, my question is, you're gonna have a bathtub, shower, a kitchen?
Sorry. Yes, sir. I'm gonna do a shower, a stand-up shower with, because we don't have the interior done yet. I didn't know if I needed that, but I'm gonna do a stand-up shower in the back area right over here. That's where there's that long window on the backside, so that it lets light through there. And then, so it'll be a stand-up shower, a small little sink, and a small toilet. So,
Okay, so I guess what I'm getting at, is this gonna end up as a B&B?
no, this is for my mom lives in New Mexico, and she's taking care of the last of the grandparents that are alive, and she's 96 now, so she's gonna end up moving back down with me. So this is all just trying to foresee what's coming, because it's inevitable. So I'm trying to set myself up where we can all be comfortable in a space, and we can be outside, I can be outside. Like I said, I don't have the money to buy a new property or a bigger property, so I'm just trying to build onto something that I have. I have a little bit of cash, and I'm just gonna kind of dump it into what I have, because I can't.
So more than a garden accessory structure, it's looking to be some type of residence possibly?
No, it won't be a residence, it'll just be like, it's gonna be an addition to the house. So, I mean, I have the room inside, so it's just more of a space for us to be outside together. And pretty much, I mean, it's not gonna have a kitchen in it or anything like that. It's just gonna have a bathroom. No kitchen, no oven, nothing like that at all.
I understand, thank you.
Okay.
Just want clarification. Are these sliding glass doors you're proposing on each side?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And do you have the other elevations besides this corner?
I do.
And then while you're getting the other elevations up, the other question I have is, how did you decide on the overhang, which seems
The
really, really
overhang,
tight?
We came to, there's a similar property, Dave Bailey did two smaller units, and we're gonna kind of mimic exactly what he did with the short overhang with the gutters.
Okay. So you're showing sliding glass doors, and then the other fenestration, they're not operable, they're just they're just panes of glass?
Correct. Yes, sir. So, yeah, we have all the whole, from the east, the west, the north, and the south. It's all gonna be, 1 foot off the ground, all around the whole building, so it's gonna be nice and even. And then you can see the distance off the fence line is gonna be 3 feet, which was mandatory. And then 5 feet from eve to eve, and that is all the way around.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's see, we'll stay here. The west elevation, north elevation, and then the east elevation, they all have the trim board on the corners. It looks like a drafting issue on the bottom right where we don't have the trim board.
Where am I, which one are we looking at?
Bottom right,
Bottom right?
the corners of the building are inconsistent with the other corners of the building as depicted.
Oh, the little trim piece,
Yeah.
you're right, it is, that is
Okay.
missing.
So the building has trim board, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and
Yes,
we'll concentrate on the front facade, which is the one with the 3 panes, the top left.
Yes.
And your intent there is to have those windows, I mean, you want it an inside-outside feel.
Yeah.
So you want to extend that glass and that mullion to the trim board, right?
Correct,
Okay.
yeah, so it's gonna,
So it's not how we typically see things in the district, but I think that this is a unique thing and it can kind of be its own thing. So with that in mind, if you're going to have that detailing there, I would suggest that type of detailing go everywhere, because when you look at your shower window in the back, it goes trim board to trim board, bottom left.
gotcha.
On your north elevation, you've got an opportunity to maybe take that other, the top right,
Sorry.
that skinny vertical window, you have the opportunity to kind of put that into the trim board.
Mhm.
And then you have the opportunity on the bottom right to detail that corner, because that's going to be really the main facade there. You're going to want that corner to be as open as possible and just have the trim boards drop. And then the glass, the sliding glass, do what it wants to do on both sides there.
Okay,
So I think that detailing should be consistent rather than kind of loosey-goosey. And I think that you can get there. I just want to put that out there for everybody to talk about, because what you're presenting is atypical, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. We just want to make sure that it's atypical consistently
Gotcha,
in its
so it
detailing,
matches.
so that the detailing's right and we're all on the same page with what we're going to see there. Because I think that corner has the ability to do what you want, which is to open that portion of your yard up into something that's nice.
yeah.
And it can be really accomplished with that detailing. So that's my comment regarding the
Fenestration.
the fenestration and how it hits the siding. Novelty siding, what does that mean?
Novelty siding is the board-on-board that you see all the older houses with. My house has it, my neighbor's house. It's kind of like slotted and grooved, so it folds onto each other.
A clapboard.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Very good. And then show you are going eave to eave there in that top left, the west elevation. That's a 5-foot dimension there from eave to eave that you're showing?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then the dimension of the building itself looks like it's 10 something, 10.6?
Yeah, the building itself is gonna be, what we got here?
Your addition,
Oh, my addition.
yeah, above
Oh,
there.
sorry.
The dimensions are very small,
10-4.
10.4. Okay, now put the plan back up that has that, because I think there's a dimensional inconsistency. Yeah, okay, there we go. Now you show an 8-foot there on that.
So what I think that's taking into consideration, I think he may have overlooked it where he didn't, that's gonna be the actual inside of it.
Right,
The inside.
but when you look at it, it says 5 foot inside to inside there, so now your eave to eave measurement at 5 foot is inconsistent from site plan to elevation. So the question is, do you have the space to do what you want to do within that 5 foot to achieve that 5 foot dimension?
Yes, that is 100%, yeah, we definitely do, 'cause that was the biggest thing, was the 3 feet off the back. So we measured it like, gosh, I don't even know how many, measured it like, I don't even know how many times, it was pretty crazy, but, yeah, I mean, we were out there with tape measures and,
Right,
but yes, sir, so I'll get that corrected.
okay. It's just inconsistent from the site plan that you show, which is where you would have all that dimensional information tied down typically to your elevation, so something's getting lost in the mix.
Okay.
And we don't want to have to get into another variance there for that. We want to make sure that you can accomplish it without putting something up that becomes a problem down the road.
Okay.
So let's double check that.
Yeah.
And with that, I'm done. Question?
Just one more question, and I'll pose it so that you can still respond. It seems like what you're trying to do here is, well, this is a comment, question. What you're trying to do here is create a really distinct architectural object that relates in form and scale to your existing house and then obviously to the design guidelines. But I'm just wondering, while I appreciate you proposing a brick pier system with lattice. It seems to be like, unless you really needed that, like for ventilation, this would be a case where it could just be a really simple stem wall just with stucco, which would save you a lot of expense, but also make the project more consistent as an architectural vocabulary that's a lot
I
more
like that.
simplified.
Yeah, I dig that, yeah.
Okay. I mean, we still have to decide that
Yeah.
as a commission, but it's
Yeah.
just an observation. I wanted to hear from you whether.
Yeah, no, I like that, so
Okay.
basically, instead of doing the bricks, which is a lot more money than just, I would just do like concrete and then finish it.
Yeah,
historically.
because you're really simplifying the forms that are inherent within the.
What
within
if I
the-
did concrete and I did like a brick veneer, like
No.
no?
Only if you really wanted to,
Scratch that.
Yeah. No, just joking.
Yeah.
Okay. You've played along with us here during our question and answer. Do you have anything else for rebuttal before we close it down and discuss?
No, I just look forward to doing something cool and unique, and I've worked my whole life in the advertising industry, so I got out of that I bartend now, so I just wanna do something that's fun for Ybor. I've been there my whole life.
Thanks.
Yeah.
We'll close the public hearing and discuss the case. Any additional comments?
No, no other additional comments, like you all have been sort of hinting at. It's, I think it's a modern, simple reinterpretation of the A-frame of his existing structure, and it's, can be very clean, especially cleaning up the pier details, that stuff, and just, like, I guess on the drawing, super simple, just keep it
Yeah.
clean, simple, and, I think it'll be a successful little addition to the house.
Thank you.
More than that, I think it'll be a good addition to that block, and as close to the heart of Ybor City and Seventh Avenue as it is. Yeah, I think it's swell, to tell you the truth.
Thank you.
I think it's going to be, it certainly meets the guidelines, especially in terms of the scale and the massing. One concern I have, because the most visible part of the project is going to be the two windows at each end of the gable. And it is hard to tell from your drawings. I realize they're wood trim, but you said they're not operable. I guess since those are going to be the most visible parts, I'm just really want to make sure that they look more historic, because normally we wouldn't be approving glass sliding doors, but I think on the bottom, and if the fenestration along the lower part is consistently expressed, I'm just curious, should these on top be a little bit more historic in terms of their profile? No?
No.
Okay, all right.
I'll pick up on that. I
Yeah.
would say everybody's encouraged by what you're presenting, right? It's something that's fresh. It's going to be fun for you. Tighten up the detailing, make it consistent. I don't see the reason to change fenestration stylings. Let's poke something up out of your backyard that somebody says, hey, that's cool.
Yeah.
What's going on there? And I think that you have the opportunity to have the whole first floor just be poured concrete, get the stairs, you want the inside outside, bring kind of the stairs up and into the space,
Yeah.
do a polished concrete there. I don't think that you're bound by, kind of trying to make brick piers and look like other things, because I think you're gonna have a very clean box sitting on a very clean piece of concrete. And so some of the historical things that we would tend to gravitate towards, I think that your project is moving away from, because it's trying to be something a little bit, a reinterpretation of some of those things. So I think that gives you the opportunities to do that. I would say in the motion, we need to emphasize the detailing, consistency, and double check the eaves so that we don't get in a situation where you're having to back up and spend more money for no reason. So those are my comments.
I have one more comment, and the only problem I have with this is not his problem. As you drive down Fifth Avenue, you're gonna see this thing that kinda looks a little bit like a silo. But that's not his problem. I think for what he's doing, it's just right. I'm hoping that at some point in time, that parking lot gets built up.
I
And
really
then-
hope so,
And
too.
then we'll have a really swell looking thing. No, this is good. That's not a deal breaker by any means, by
Thank
my,
you.
by my estimation.
And, thank you. Tighten up the drawings, because there's a whole bunch of inconsistencies here, and what we're trying to do is work with you to get you to your goal.
Okay.
I think that I think that you've made a good presentation, but even just looking at the drawings that are on the screen, the elevation, the roof pitch and the depth of the roof from the gable end to the eaves is inconsistent. It's two different buildings. It's just something that if we understand what you're going for, I think.
Yeah.
But if you don't check this on the site and in the building and stuff, you're going to end up, wasting some time and some money.
Understood.
So measure twice, cut once,
At once, yeah.
draw it 5 times. Don't
Yeah.
be sad.
The goal was just to
No.
really just kind of put this in front of you guys and get your feedback, and now that the variance is good, now I can really put the money into an I just was so scared about coming out of pocket so much, I really tried to do as much as I could on my own, and now it's time to really put some horsepower behind it.
I was going to say, just for the commissioner's sake, because the side elevations are not the side elevations that are going to be built.
Right.
So the proportions are going to change substantially. Are we still okay with not seeing it again?
That's for
I
a
mean,
motion.
it's- What's that?
I think that's for a motion.
Yeah.
I think that,
Okay.
I think that,
And also given facts like, depending on what he uses for mechanical cooling and all that stuff, depending on if he puts a compressor in the yard or not, or if it's gonna be a window unit, can affect the elevations and how it seems as well potentially.
okay, well, let's,
Yeah.
we've had good conversation. We've even had additional conversation that's not supposed to happen.
Okay.
But, let's do a motion.
I'd like to do a motion for continuance, because the side elevations really are drastically different than what's gonna be appearing. So with that. Gonna move to grant a continuance in BLC for the property located at, BLC 19-81 for the property located at 1607 6th Avenue to the next public hearing with the following conditions: that the applicant adjust the drawings to reflect discussion on the various points at the public hearing, specifically provide more details, provide consistent floor plans and elevations, and also revise the stem wall construction from the proposed pier wall system, and provide a up-to-date site plan as well.
Okay, there's a motion,
I'll second that motion.
second.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Typically, I am standing in here, and normally I sit with the Architectural Review Commission, but it's typically the practice of the Architectural Review Commission, I imagine it's similar for this board, since you gave me a look, that if a motion for continuance is made, that we do discuss with the applicant, and the applicant consents to that.
Right. So you, as the applicant, have the opportunity to, you see where the motion's headed. We haven't voted yet. A continuance would give you the opportunity to clarify in the next time we see you all of the different things that we're talking about. Just reconfirming site elevations, getting the drawings consistent, detailing. You have the opportunity to ask us to vote up and down on what we've seen today. That would, put you at risk of not going forward, but that's your prerogative as the owner.
Okay.
So we have a motion for continuance with a second. It's your opportunity to say whether or not you want us to vote up and down on the project or continue with the motion that we have on the table.
Can I clarify something as
Sure.
well, Mr. Chairman? If you ask for an up or down vote and you are denied, you will not be allowed to come back to the board with the same project for the period of 12 months. If you made a substantial change to the project, and that would be determined by staff, what would be a substantial change, then you could come back before the 12 months. But that's kind of the risk that the chairman's talking about if you ask for an up or down vote. Obviously, if you get approved, then you can move forward, but that's the risk of denial.
Understood. I'll go with the continuance.
Okay. We'll
I
see
will
if
come
we
back
do
with
too.
my-
So we have a motion for continuance with all the clarifications to be brought forth with us in terms of detailing in the dimensional checks that have to be brought to the set. We have a second? Right? Did we have a second?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None? Okay,
And I'll
continue.
come back with it all buttoned up.
Yeah, good choice.
Commissioners, our next case is BLC 19-64 for the address of 1602 East Fourth Avenue. The primary structure on the site is a non-contributing structure that dates back to 1973. The zoning classification is YC7. Under the YC7 zoning code, it discusses a balance of use between the development of the areas, including residential, commercial, office use, which contribute to the land use mix to ensure a viable economic base to the historic district. The request in front of you this morning is for a certificate of appropriateness for an accessory structure. This is the Sanborn from the late 1920s. Property in question is highlighted in a green box. You'll see the primary structure that takes on the appearance of expressing the corner. As I stated, it's a non-contributing structure. This is from the 1920s, showing the fabric here. It's on the 4th Avenue, is the front elevation of the structure. And for this request, to the rear there was an alley. And as you move to the north, you have 5th Avenue and 6th Avenue. And as you move to the south, you have 3rd, 2nd, and as you approach Adamo. This is looking from above. This is the building that dates back to 1973. You have the parking area, and then as you continue on, you have an open area that encompasses the accessory structure, and then you have a series of multifamily buildings that came in front of this board probably 20 years ago and received approval. This is looking at the 1973 building on the corner of 4th and 16th. This is moving to the east. So this is the building, this is the parking area, and as you continue to the east, you have the storage structure that's partially there now that staff is requesting that would be cladded. This is looking back at the non-contributing structure. Series of pictures here. This is the surrounding properties, also non-contributing structures. This is to the west of the subject site across 16th Street. This is 16th and 4th. This is to the west. This is directly across 4th Avenue to the south. Some street shots that we like to incorporate. This is looking to the east down 4th Avenue. This is looking down 4th Avenue to the west. Subject site is over here. And just to conclude, one final shot. This is looking down 16th to the south. Subject site is here. Non-contributing structure, non-contributing structure, and non-contributing structure. That concludes the photo presentation. I'll have the agent address the board at this time.
Good morning. as Ron noted, this is our existing building, which we are tenants of. We occupy basically 3/4 of the building. We
Excuse me.
kinda wrap around.
I'm sorry. Can you state your name so that we?
Oh, I'm sorry, Henry Humber.
Oh, thanks, Henry.
Yes. I work for George F. Young, and we are the tenants of the structure, one of the tenants. We occupy basically 3/4 of the building, and there's a second suite in this southwest corner there. We are land surveyors, engineers, architect firm. We've been around for actually it's our 100th year in September. And we proposed and had a accessory structure, basically a connex or a storage container that we needed additional storage for survey equipment, stakes, hubs, and also our what we call two-man ROV, basically ATV, and a one-man ATV for our survey crews, along with other field supplies. The existing building did not have sufficient interior storage space, so when we went to lease the building, we were told that we would be okay to bring in an accessory structure pending approval. Unfortunately for us, in December, we had a theft of both our ATV and our ROV at our previous location, and so it expedited our ability or our need to bring that particular structure in. So we ordered the structure, got it delivered, I think it was around the 4th or 5th of January, and then basically had to start the process at that time. And I've been in constant contact with Ron and his staff since that point in time. We basically, we're kind of handicapped. This is an existing drainage area, which was already on site, and also a masonry wall that runs parallel to our property along our north right-of-way, back behind the parking area. And because of this existing drainage, it forced us to basically have to kind of move the structure more to the south or to the front of the structure. We would prefer to have it back in the back, but it would have encroached in that drainage area. We did research and make sure that we met all guidelines off the side or the rear of the parcel, and also off the street side to make sure that we would meet those standards. And then we went ahead and put fencing across the street side of the structure for the aesthetic purpose. And also for security, we kind of use this as an infill area we have a boat and some other things that we store back there. So from a practicality, now our operations is all in one place for a period of time. We were actually trying to maintain the yard equipment at our old location, but after that break-in and theft, we decided we needed to consolidate to make sure that we had our security and it was more active area. As it relates to the elevations, through numerous discussions with Ron and his staff, basically it's a 40-foot container with vertical, it just has vertical metal cladding existing. One end has doors on it, on the southernmost end, and there are, I don't see it, on the west elevation, we're missing. We had a man door cut in so we could access the front half of it for just supplies. Like I said, we have stakes, hubs, just survey equipment primarily that we keep in there. We had agreed to paint or clad, however the board felt was appropriate for this area. There are other containers in the immediate area. We also thought that putting on a roof would help from the architectural standpoint. So we proposed a shallow 4-on-12 pitch roof, and we'll bring aluminum siding up to match the metal siding of the existing structure, along with painting it to match our existing building. not as exciting as the previous. It's just a shed. And I think that's primarily it.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservation. There are 4 letters of opposition that are attached in your packet. Staff feels that this application is consistent with the Ybor City design guidelines with additional modification to the structure that's there now. He had provided drawings indicating that the installation of corrugated metal can be attached to the structure. As it comes up the body of the building, then it terminates into wood siding. For consistency with the historic fabric, and I'm going to show you some illustrations that I have here, that the structure should be cladded in metal completely with the siding and the roof as well. And then if they were going to introduce any lighting, the lighting source should be presented at the hearing, and a final color palette as well. Going through the illustrations that I have, first I'm going to start with the Sanborn map, as we always start with. It's kind of difficult to see, so what I did, I circled in the red the buildings, the period buildings that were cladded in metal. Once again, the Sanborn gives us a lot of illustration. The red indicates brick construction or brick veneer on the exterior. Blue is concrete block. Yellow is frame construction. And then anywhere that there's gray, our index tells us that that was cladded in metal. So if you look at the buildings here, there's a couple of buildings on 6th Avenue that flank the railroad tracks. That back in 1929 would have had that cladding on it. Buildings on 5th Avenue that are pretty close to the front property line that have the cladding on it, so frame construction with cladding over it. And then a series of buildings as it abuts the alley. I took a broader approach to it and just kind of panned out a little bit to show the accessory structures. A lot of times they're indicated with A's for automobile access, as this one is. That's, close proximity to a primary street, as this one sits on the front property line. Then you have a series of buildings off the alley, and then a different orientation on 17th Street. And then down here as well on 8th Avenue, back from 1929. This is new construction behind a house that is on 4th Avenue, and they chose to be more historically correct with their secondary structure, with the cladding. This is on 11th. Shows the fabric of the primary houses, period appropriate, with the cladding. No fenestration, very simple utilitarian building. And then inspiration here, changing what was a storage structure behind a period house in Ybor City as well, and they turned it into a residence or a different use. So with the information that I provided with the Sanborn map, with the illustrations that I showed, this is where staff is pulling that it can be consistent if it's done properly. I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you. We do have a question for you.
Yeah, I have a question. The container's already on site?
Yes, sir.
Have we been provided any photographs of the existing condition?
I have one. This was provided from a neighbor. I have some other ones, but there's a fence in the way, and this shows the best.
So the proposal before us is to clad this with the
Correct.
drawings that we're looking at.
To be consistent with the criteria.
And then is the fencing new, or was it?
All the perimeter fencing, the white wood fencing is new.
and that's staying, or is he proposing something else?
You have to ask. I believe it's staying as part of the mitigation to kind of conceal it from the pedestrian experience.
Okay.
That is correct, unless there's some other recommendation.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for Ron?
I have a question.
Okay, we have another question for you, Ron.
Ron, does the zoning allow this container to be there?
Yes, this has been vetted through zoning, through transportation, through solid waste, and through natural resources, as we do with all projects as they come forward.
Okay.
Thanks. Okay, this is the opportunity for public comment now. I get the sense that there are people here to speak before or for or against the project, so now's your chance.
Hi, I'm Mark Geary, and I'm here for the Homeowners Association of Las Palomas Condominiums, which this container sits next to. So the people on the end of that, that's what they're looking at, this rusted structure. It broke the sidewalk when they put it in. That's not been repaired. The fencing is about that thick and is broken all around it already. It's an eyesore. Of course, the container's an eyesore, as the way it is. We were told when they put it in that they were going to paint it, and that has not happened. I do like what they showed today that they're going to do, but I still think that the fencing needs to be addressed to make it a more appropriate fence. If you can, I tried to send pictures that didn't work. They were too big, but it's all cracked and broken and kicked in parts already. And the main problem with that end of the building is that's what it looks into, and now we're afraid it's going to be a storage unit back there, storage lot for, it's already got a boat trailer and some junk back there. So that's all I had to say. I do like what they are proposing to do with the roof and making it fit a little better than this rusted thing. One of my concerns is, how is it tied down? I don't, I know it's a big heavy structure, but it still needs to be tied down somehow, connected to the earth. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Additional public comment?
Yeah, my name's Rich Karen. I live at 1510 North 17th Street, which is also the Palmas de Ybor. That picture was the picture that I took from my balcony. It's basically just a giant eyesore the way it is right now. The fence is falling down, and if they could fix the sidewalk, because it was crushed when they put this in there. I also want to reiterate that this was all put in with none of your approval. It was already there. It's there already. And I just think it's one of those ask forgiveness instead of ask for permission. It should have been done that way. But I'm good with the way it's going to look as long as everything comes out the way it's supposed to look. So as long as we can do that, I'm okay with it. But I just want to let you know this is one of those ask forgiveness, don't ask for permission. If it would have done correctly, it probably wouldn't have had any opposition to this. So.
Thank you. Okay, I see no additional public comment for this particular case, so we'll open it up for commissioners to ask questions.
So how was the shipping container installed in the first place without the BLC's approval?
We did go ahead and place that order in late November. We were starting the process of getting the approval, but during that process of the approval is when we had the break-in, and so we had to make a corporate decision. Like I said, we had vacated our prior location, which was out in East Tampa. There was no one in the building, and with that equipment sitting out there, we just didn't have any way to secure it, so we ordered it in and brought it in. And then to the gentleman's point, there was we need to secure $30,000 worth of equipment before it takes legs and walks off again. We were fortunate to recover it, but then that was just a corporate decision that we needed to have it where it was close to us. and we could have eyes and hands on it on a regular basis.
And are there any plans to redo the fence? As I believe you said you were open to.
Well, that fence is new. I can get a call on Monday morning saying, Hank, someone kicked the fence, and we have to go out and try to make repairs, fix it. That fence was all been put in the past couple months since the container was placed. To address the comment about painting, we were advised not to do any type of exterior modifications until we came before the board. So not to paint it, we've talked about stucco, we've talked about aluminum siding, we talked about roofing it, doing a lot of things, but basically until this hearing and getting the board's approval and or recommendations, we were advised not to do any improvements until we figured out what we had to do.
Okay. No further questions. Thank you.
Sure.
You addressed my question, thank you.
Did the fencing receive approval from the Barrio Latino?
Yes, it did. We originally proposed PVC fencing, which was immediately struck down, and told that it needed to be period appropriate, which was basically wood privacy fencing.
Did that come before us, or is that it was something that staff approved?
Fencing is something that's delegated through the ordinance, and it can be done administratively.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, I was like, I don't remember seeing that. Okay, a question for you. As a representative of George F. Young, that's your container that you need on the site for your operations.
Correct.
You say you just moved into that particular lease agreement?
Yeah, well, we moved in late October.
Right.
Yes.
Less than a year?
Less than a year, yes.
How long's your lease?
I think 5 years.
Do you, I guess my, kind of the trajectory of this question is, do you see this as a permanent location for you? Are we trying to do a temporary Band-Aid here to help the community, or is this something where you're putting down stakes and we're gonna be looking at this forever?
No, we plan on being there as long as our landlord will have us.
Okay. Or
If
until
the Rays don't
get back
come and
here.
move us.
So I guess the answer to the question is that you're leasing, but you could be there indefinitely?
Yes, sir.
Depending on your operations?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The type of roof that you've proposed, I think it was an asphalt roof or asphalt shingles, did that
Just
change?
asphalt shingles, but we were open to metal if necessary.
Okay. Yeah, I think that from my perspective, a metal roof and a roof pitch that is more matching the neighbors would be more appropriate. Trying to work with the folks that are, the 4 and 12 seems pretty slight compared to the construction that's next door. And we've talked about the PVC. And have you done anything else to address the notion that it needed to be tied down? Is it in its final spot with all of the appropriate engineering in place?
Yes, sir. It is in its final location. We have secured the augers.
Mm-hmm.
We put those in, and then we actually met with Ron. He said, well, before you tie it down.
Yeah.
Let's make sure it's not moving.
Yeah. Okay.
But we have all the appropriate chains and everything that would be necessary to
Right.
Meet hurricane and wind loading.
Okay. And then so the proposal again is are you cladding it, or is it to just put a cap on it with a roof?
Well, originally, one of the discussions had us having to go to a horizontal cladding, but after seeing Ron's examples and seeing some other examples in the neighborhood, the building has a natural
Right.
vertical cladding in itself, so we were just going to cap it and match a vertical metal instead of wood, put metal and paint it to match our structure.
Okay. I guess the challenge with that is the shipping containers have a much different kind of pattern to the metal than what you'd be able to find at Home Depot.
This is true.
Yeah. So painting existing, roof on top with a metal fascia or a metal gable end to
Correct.
tie it all together.
And at an appropriate pitch.
Right. Is there any other site improvement that you need to do, or you have all the access that you need?
We have sufficient access.
So the trailers that we've talked about, or there's no modifications to any fences. What we see here is the way you guys need to operate, minus any of the aesthetic considerations.
Correct.
Okay. That's my questions. I think that, oh wait, we've got another.
One more question. It's been brought up that perhaps you damaged the sidewalk when you installed this. Whose responsibility is it to correct that?
We're kind of at contention about that damage. When I was there, when it was installed, the driver drove, the only way to install those types of containers is basically to pull straight down, straight back, tilt the bed of the truck and let it slide off. And the damage is a good 25, 30 feet away. We were never, our truck was never, or the delivery truck was never that far to the east. I'm not sure when it was damaged, but it's not in alignment with the container itself as it crosses the sidewalk.
And perhaps it's a question for Ron then, but if the sidewalk was damaged, who would be responsible for correcting that situation now? The property owner or the city?
The property owner. Upon any project moving forward, we look at the site and at the condition of the site, and if anything is damaged, any public right-of-way is damaged because of the construction, it's on that person to pay for the damages.
And what, because the container was there before you had a chance to inspect the site, what's the determination been?
I'll get code enforcement involved. Now with Google Earth, we could go back a series of time and see if we could put it together. We heard from the neighborhood that it was damaged through the process, but we wanted to see exactly what was gonna come out today.
Okay.
While I'm at the podium, I wanna make a position that it's very important. We get requests for these containers to come into the area quite often. And if it's more in the industrial sector, with a proper YC zoning, there might be something that could be reviewed as it currently states. I believe this one needs to be cladded appropriately with the vertical siding. This is a corrugated metal on all sides. Any doors need to be cladded as well as the roof. So I believe his illustrations show that the cladding is coming up to a certain point, and then on top of that is wood. This whole structure should be all in metal, and then the roof metal as well. Thank you.
Ron, additional question as well. Are there any other fencing options that they could pursue as well, or is that the wood fencing the only one that can be sort of approved for this site?
With the proper YC zoning that he has, it's YC 6, I believe, he could go to 6 foot high. If it's more residential in nature, then we look for a 4 foot high picket fence. The alternatives are he could do a wood fence or he could do a metal fence or some kind of stucco combination to kind of mimic the primary structure. I think the most sensitive in this area was the wood fence, and that's why we kind of steered him in that direction.
Have you inspected the wood fence that was built? Because from the one photograph we saw, it did look rather flimsy, and we've also heard public testimony to the fact that it's not perhaps up to the standards of...
It's a stockade fence.
Mm-hmm.
It is individual. They're side by side. It's not like a shadow box that has a little more structure to it.
Mm-hmm.
When I went out there, the fence was fine, but over time, it's an urban environment and it gets, damaged at time to time. So, that's on their responsibility as well to keep up the area.
Okay, and then I just want, you mentioned earlier about what the responsibility is or what the options are, but I was under the impression that if it is a commercially zoned structure and it abuts residential, then it does have to be a masonry construction. Is that not correct?
This went through a design exception because they needed certain buffering through there, and the design exception was approved by zoning. There's certain dimensional requirements from the property line that the structure needs to be away from, and it was granted administratively through the zoning department, and the condition that the site is in now with the buffering around there.
Okay. And that was recently?
That was within 3 months.
3 months, yeah.
Before the container was there?
No, it was all part of it. The container being delivered there triggered the design exception to move forward.
Okay, thank you. We'll close the public hearing. I think we can cut to the chase on this one probably in terms of getting, I think we need to see it again. I think that the applicant is trying to put their best foot forward to satisfy the requirements of the Barrio, but we're going to need to see some additional input based upon what staff has said and what we would want to see as well. So
Yeah, I would agree, because the success of this project really is determined by the finesse of the detailing.
Yes.
And the current drawings don't reflect that. And then I just have to say that I am concerned about the fence. We've heard public testimony that it perhaps doesn't look up to the standards of the district. And with even though a design exception was granted, we still maybe have some jurisdiction over the fence. Seems to me if you have a commercial structure, even though it's non-contributing, it's a masonry structure, when you're abutting against a residential neighborhood, it really does seem like that should be at least partially a masonry fence to sort of reflect back onto the structure. That would be my feeling.
Any additional comments from the commissioners?
Or at least a fence that can stand up to the rigors of its surrounding environment, right?
Or more substantial wood fence.
Substantial fence.
A higher
very
quality
least.
wood fence.
Right.
Yeah, I would say to that effect, I mean, you know, you've got an applicant who's trying to provide a connex or some kind of storage structure, work with the community to make it its appearance in sync with the Barrio, but they're trying to protect $30,000 worth of equipment, which is important for them. I'd hate to, have to put in more improvements than, the equipment that they're trying to protect. So with that, I think that.
Mr. Chairman, may I chime in on that point about the fence? Sure. It was my understanding from the testimony from Mr. Vila that the BLC staff had issued a certificate of appropriateness for the fence, and that's that authority is delegated to them under the code in 27-101. So I don't believe that the board would be able to take that certificate of appropriateness away from them. It has been issued, right? And so they do have approval for that fence according to the guidelines that were interpreted by staff. And as far as the fence being able to stand up and obviously can't be falling over, those are separate code violations and are code enforcement issues. If the fence is in disrepair, then they would be subject to a code enforcement process, which is a separate process than this one.
Okay.
Just wanted to add that to the conversation.
Thank you. Any additional discussion from the commissioners? Okay. So we need a motion.
Let's see. So move to grant continuation in case BLC 19-64 for the property located at 1602 East 4th Avenue to the next public hearing on July 23rd. Let's see. For the public hearing at 9 a.m.
I'll second it, and just for clarification, to allow the applicant to provide updated drawings reflecting the discussion at the public hearing in terms of the detailing, construction, and materials to clad the existing container.
Okay. We have a motion and a second with conditions. The applicant has the opportunity to request an up or down vote or allow the board to move forward voting on the motion on the table.
We'll go for the continuance.
Okay, thank you. Motion, second with the added conditions and clarifications. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioner Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservation. This will be the last agenda item, which is BLC 19-97 for the address at 2309 East 3rd Avenue. Currently, it's a vacant parcel with a YC6 zoning classification. Reading from the code, zoning code for YC6, this sub-district comprises land devoted to general and intensive commercial uses located in the southern fringe of the historic district. and will which provide a transition to the industrial use south of the historic district. In front of you this morning is for certificate of appropriateness for final approval for the new construction of a mixed-use building with some site improvements. Starting with the Sanborn map. This is 3rd Avenue. Subject parcels in the highlighted green, in between 23rd Street and 24th Street. So on the southern portion of 3rd Avenue, there is an open alley, but unimproved behind. Looking from above, subject site, once again, is in the green box, which faces 3rd Avenue, and between 23rd and 24th. You see the alley that runs behind it. This is a fairly new construction that's came forward. This is a single-family residential building. There has been new construction approved here, which the applicant will bring forward some massing indications to show the sensitivity that they're coming in with forward here. There has been new construction approved here and here. So you see there's been a series of interest in this area. This is looking straight on from 3rd Avenue. Subject site is within here. This building to the east was the new construction that I stated received approval, which is single family. To the west of the subject site, it's just a vacant parcel. And we have another one of those accessory structures back there. Directly across the 3rd Avenue, this is to the north. And then some street shots. This is looking down 3rd Avenue to the east. As a reference point, this is the new construction abutting to the east. This is looking back towards 22nd. Subject site is over here on the south side of 3rd Avenue. This is looking from the alley back at the site. And to conclude, this is just 2 shots of the alley. It's a 10-foot alley. This is looking to the east and to the west. At this time, I'll have the owner address the board.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kevin McGinnis. I'm the owner of the property. Extremely excited to present this proposed project in front of you. I just want to start off with thanking Ron. We've been working together for a couple months now, and where we started and where we are now is pretty awesome from what I can see. So we're looking to do some mixed space. We have 3 lofts in the rear right of the property. We have 3 levels of office space on the left side of the property with parking below both of those structures. I'm here with my architect, Mr. Louis Lara, and he can explain some of the elevations for you and go over some of the questions that you may have in more detail. Just wanted to tell you a little bit about myself though first. I've lived in Tampa for 32 years. I've been coming to Ybor for probably 24 of those years. I currently have an office in Ybor City on 5th Avenue, and we're expanding our business, so this is kind of why we're moving forward, hopefully moving forward with this project. This is a place where I want to be. I love Ybor. My son is actually 16 years old. I'd like him to be part of this business as well moving forward. So this is something I plan on keeping in the family, and I also work with my 2 other brothers that would be with me on this as well. So we're just extremely excited to hopefully be able to move forward with this project. Thank you so much.
My name is Louis Lara. I'm the architect of record for this project, and I'm going to be. I have boards. This was a very challenging project. The site is only 100 feet by 50. Actually, is 95.5 by 50. And the YC60 is a very generous, code. It allows for, a multi-use, zero, lot line setbacks, and several other issues. So, in order to, take advantage and be within code, without requesting a variance for the project, we basically, try to stay within the limits, you conform. And in order to do that, we got a 1.5 floor area ratio, meaning that, if we go by the site dimensions, we're allowed to have 7,162 square feet of habitable space. What we did with that space was to have two components: a residential component with 3 lofts, one stacked on top of the other, and then and the office, professional office section. And interesting enough, the building is about the width of this chamber, so it's not really a big, massive building. The first thing that we did, and in order to be respectful of the massing that is existing and the one that is in the future, is to create that mass that you see. The first mass is 2 feet off of the it's a setback 2 feet off of the property line, and it's only 2-story high. From there, we push the rest of the building back 10 feet, that massing, and then we have a secondary mass up above the driveway, that is located right about here. And the model is pretty specific about that. Now, keep in mind, the model was the first, variation that we went through. We kept, fine tuning and massaging the massing to get, to make it even more attractive and respectful of, the area. Even though the other advantage we had was that this is at the urban edge of what I would call residential, industrial part of the city. To the east and south, what you see is a lot of warehouses, 2-story high, and then to the left, maybe half a block away, is where there's some residential houses that end where the Arturo Fuentes building is. So it's a pretty interesting site because it has a little bit of everything. After sitting down with all your officials from the stormwater, transportation, Ron Villa, being very helpful in terms of trying to stay within the the guidelines, we came up with this concept. The first level is a parking. We were able to accommodate the 8 parking spaces that are required, and we actually came up with 10 parking spaces. We have no need to use the alleyway that is, right now is not being used, and it's actually undeveloped. So we're staying within that, within our, site with all the, 10 parking spaces. But we took the decision to bring the walls down on 2 sites, on the sites that are fronting the street, and on the site, adjacent to this neighbor, and then the rest of it is pretty much screened by a staircase, some partially walls, and some vegetation that is going to be required by the Natural Resources Department. The next thing is would be the
front elevation?
No, second thing is, would be the, well, real quick, let me tell you what. I'll show them the floor plan. This is the way it sits on the second level. You know, this is gonna be the dwelling units. They're gonna be about 912 square feet each, 3 levels. And then this is the office space. On the second level is 1,400 square feet. But on the third level, it's, let's see. Oh, I guess, on the third level is only 16 square feet. No, sorry, this is the second level. 16 square feet, and then on the second level, we have 1,400 square feet. The only difference was that on the second level, the wall is 2 feet from the property line, it goes, about 2-story high. And then from there, we pushed the mass, back 10 feet, and then we went up the other 12 feet. Interesting enough, we, okay, good. This is the north elevation, the one fronting the street. And like I said, this mass that you see right here, it kind of, matches the massing, we're trying to be, consistent with what's there and what's coming probably in the future. So that mass is there. Then the rest of the mass, that's the one that is pushed back 10 feet. And then the dwelling units are set back 50 feet from the street. So, we, like I said, we went through several, variation pushing back and forth. And at the very end, we felt real comfortable with the way it came out. It breaks it up real well, respects the street edge and then the neighbors and all that. YC6 allow up to 60 feet. However, the top of our, truss is the roof is gonna be at 54 with a 3'6", parapet. These are the case studies that we, that kind of, helped us, be consistent with some of the Ybor City. We use this type of the step parapet with a centerpiece that is a slope. We had this type of signage that is going to be here and indicate where the offices are and where the loft are. We're using this type of canopy with tie backs, over the storefront, doors and side lights. And then, we're using metal railing, again, to be consistent with some of the, this is another building that we found on 7th Street that is doing the similar move that we have on the model. So that was inspirational. Same for that one. This is only 2 stories, but and then, we're using some type of, railing similar to the railing that they have used on this building right here. The section, we cut a section. The section pretty much, it's pretty straightforward. The first floor, it's going to be, concrete columns and beams. With foundations as per structural. We're going to be framing the building with either metal or wood, depending on what the calculations give us. I think it's possible to do it out of wood, but the final decision will be determined based on the height of the building. I have a typical wall section. cutting right through the front of the facade. We have a metal door. We have, we're gonna have an entrance, we're gonna have a metal door, you're gonna go in through there. However, you're still gonna be out, outside, on the roof, of course. And then there's a step in, there's a 2-foot, step in. And then, this is where the 1-story level, the second level is gonna be up to the, 2 feet from the property line. So the third level is gonna have a terrace, a pretty sizable, terrace that is 10 feet wide by 22. So fourth level is gonna be the client's, kind of a headquarters. That one is gonna have a balcony with metal railings and the same idea. We have a canopy, metal canopy with the tiebacks. As you can see here, we intend to do the 2 levels of concrete block, and we're basically going to use elastomeric, well, no, the first 2 levels are going to be brick. We're going to use the brick veneer, and you can see it on the elevation. The second level is going to be a medium coarse stucco, and I have a sample that I'm going to show you with a color. This is a medium coarse stucco. This is a fine stucco. So we're going to use between the two. The second level is brick veneer. The third level is going to be a medium coarse stucco, and the fourth level is going to be a fine coarse stucco. These are the colors that we picked. The color scheme is in this case, by Sherwin-Williams. Acier is going to be the color of the brick. The repose gray is going to be the color for the 3rd and the 4th floor, and then we're going to use the extra white for the banding. As you can see on the model, we created a 12-inch band that goes all the way around. That's another way to break up the massing of the building. That's going to be extruded, polystyrene, 2x12 with the stucco finish. When it comes to windows, we use this archetype, this case study that was used on this project. I believe it's Eastern Windows. At the 2 entrances, we're going to use this hex tile, similar to what we found, on 7th Street. Doors of entries, are going to be pretty much very industrial looking, with a heavy metal, band or frame. This is the doorknob. We're going to look for that another archetype in terms of lighting of these wall sconces that we're going to be using throughout the project. We're fencing the project with a pretty straightforward fence, 6 feet high, just for security purposes. Other than that, I have all the other elevations. I want to show you. Okay. You already saw the north elevation, which is the one fronting the street. This is the west elevation. Again, we had that 12-foot band, that ties all the way around, and it ends at a pilaster, width. We also choose just to get a little bit more, shadows around the windows. We're going to be pushing the glass as far back as possible. But in addition to that, we created a little band around the windows, just to get, again, just to get some shading. This is the terrace that the second level is gonna have access to. This is the terrace for the third level, and this is a balcony for the fourth level. The rest of it is parking. Let's see, the next elevation is the rear. The rear elevation, this is the one that is fronting the alleyway, the 10-foot alleyway. Again, this is the condo, volume, and this is the office, section. We're using that, the same, office type of window. And then on the residential side, we're doing a single hung windows with maybe an applique, or Josephine balcony. Staircase, metal staircase. This is the elevator, an elevator shaft. And then we have a little machine room, one level next to it. And this will be the east. That will be the east elevation. Again, we have the elevator shaft. We got the volume of the, condominium, side of it, or the loft. Staircase. And then this will be a concrete wall all the way up. Not a concrete wall, I mean a stucco finish, wall with some openings for ventilation, and then little windows, clear story windows, just to bring light in. The reason why I picked little windows was because this is going to be fire rated, so we decided to say small for budget purpose. The front, again, we have the terrace for the second level, and then the balcony for the fourth level. Other than that, I have a final, rendering over. I don't know if you want to maybe pass this around, but again, we took the facades elements and we're using that Acier, color right where the brick veneer goes, and then over in this also terrace that happens on the second level. This will be the medium coarse stucco, and that would be the fine coarse stucco. Same thing applies to the condominium component. And we're taking all that color scheme and texture, all the way around the building. But we're finishing. We're ending the brick veneer. Again, on the sides, one pilaster, width. Actually, it's about 4 feet wide. We have an interesting, element here that is gonna create some kind of a area for gathering, in the shade. That was left there. Again, this is the rear staircase, elevator shaft, the condominium, and then the office. Mechanical units will be located all the way in the back. Visibility will not be a problem. The units are not going to be higher than 3'6", which is the parapet height. As a roofing material, we've been successful with the TPO 60 in some of the projects of similar size and nature, and we intend to use that. But we're going to create some walking areas for accessibility, maintenance, stuff like that. Second floor. Oh, I mean, at the roof level. I think that pretty much covers.
So I'll interject a little bit here. When Ron and I
first got together, we had proposed a flat building across the front to maximize the square footage and all that kind of stuff. And then Ron's like, hey, this is not gonna work. I think we had 60 feet. So we moved it down 6 feet, and then I think the best elevation to look at is, we had it straight down from there to there. And then Ron was saying, you need to push this back. We added another rooftop kind of terrace there, all the detail there, rather than just kind of an office building that we looked at before. That was a little more officey. This has a lot more detail to it. Again, we're gonna have that little entryway door there. We have the facade going all the way across there for the in and out there for the garage. And we're just gonna have this thing finished off really nice. Where we were originally and where we are now is kind of night and day. This is obviously going to cost a lot more, but it is what it is. This is something I'm planning on having for basically ever. Might as well put the money into it. So I think that's pretty much it on.
Sir, can you state your name for the record too?
Kevin McGinnis. Yep. And then I guess we'll have Ron come up or.
Good morning, Commissioner. Ron Vila. I'm staff with Historic Preservation. Staff's finding that this project is consistent with the Ybor City Design Guidelines. Under conditions, under page 3 on your staff report, we advise the agent to provide multiple wall sections. I'd like for him to go through the wall sections again, the different sections, and call out all the materials as he goes through. I believe he has the information here. It was a little bit out of order, but if he could go through it more in a systematic manner. On the front elevation, on the eastern side of the building, there seems to be a notch there, and I wanted him to provide additional information on that notch. The earlier drawings that we saw, these are working drawings in progress, but the earlier drawings had multiple materials. They incorporated some horizontal siding, and in staff's opinion, when we sat down and review the project, it got a little too busy. So the material palette on the exterior of the cladding, we kind of simplified in moving forward. Some of the railings that he had were wood railings, and this more industrial use in this section, the metal would be more appropriate, which he engaged in now. And this is the first time we're seeing him as well. But I think it works as presented. The additional drawings, it's a complicated project. He does have multiple viewpoints of this request that can be seen. He provided a model, so if different additional discussion needs to take place, I believe all the information is here. As he moves through the wall section, the lighting he kind of touched upon real quick. I'd like for him to touch upon the lighting as well, the hardware, the signage that can be incorporated into this building can be very successful. And then the windows are a very important component of this project as well. I think he showed an inspiration for the windows, but if he has additional information as cut sheets or from the manufacturer, he should express that at this time. Also, we have John Marsh with Transportation, if he wishes to address the board.
John Marsh, Transportation Planning. I reviewed the site plan that was received May 7th. The material you're seeing today is more recent, and I have not had a chance to review it. Transportation would really like the opportunity to re-review this project. That said, from just looking at what has been presented, even though the camera cut off on some of them, it appears that he's met many of my issues, but there is one that's fairly important that I would like you to ask about. The first question I originally had was whether it appeared he had encroachments in the right-of-way. There was like a balcony. That appears to have been changed. There was another one that they had originally not presented the number of dwelling units and office space in order for us to verify the parking calculations. In fact, there weren't even floor plans originally. I saw what looked like a parking calculation. I can eyeball it, and they probably have more than enough parking, but I really we always verify that. and we always like to verify that all the parking spaces are correctly designed. It's probably not important to the BLC, but I do deeply care about driveway radii and corners, and I had made a comment on that, and I see a couple different ones. The drawings don't all agree. That's kind of just a tweaky. One that we had an issue with was we had found it inconsistent with Chapter 22-230. They had proposed this industrial gate, and the problem is when you do that, you need to have at least 18 feet for vehicles to wait on private property, or you're blocking the right-of-way, or it becomes what's considered like a gatehouse that needs to be regulated. And we mentioned that at the DRC, that they needed to do, we gave them a couple options. One option was you can apply to Transportation Division for a DET, a design exception transportation, to wrangle out whether you can do that. Sometimes there are details. I'm sure you've seen some of these gates downtown. And that is a separate process. Or they could just remove the gates from the plan and leave it open, in which case I don't have a way to object. And they could come back at a later date and resolve that issue. I saw, on the drawings presented, I saw both no gates and gates. So I'm not really sure. If there are gates, then I have to object. We would actually probably put a hold on the project. So I'm really not sure how to proceed with that. But like I said, it appears they've met most of them. It is a very complicated project. It's a very tight site. So we would like the opportunity to re-review. Thank you.
Just question with the gates. Are you referring to a roll-up gate?
Yeah, there appeared to be like, originally they had proposed like a metal roll-up gate, very industrial. It looked cool. Okay, I'll take it, it looked cool. I understand why they want to do that.
Okay.
It's just that there are rules for that, and I think there is probably a technical way forward. That would not be my determination.
Okay.
But they either need to go through that process or be aware that that's a problem, or just take it off and say, we're going to figure out a solution at a later date.
Okay, thank you.
Let me clarify we had a discussion about the gates with Ron, and the final decision was to remove and deal with that later. So that's how they're shown on the, there's nothing shown on the.
Okay, no gates.
No gates.
Okay. Okay. So this is the opportunity for public comment, if anybody's here to speak for or against the project. I'd like to say. Going once? Going twice?
I would like to say something.
Name?
On behalf of everyone else in the room. I'm Louis Lara Jr. I actually am the son of the architect, and I also am friends with the owner here, and I just want to, I guess, take this opportunity to express my excitement, not only as by relation to the project, but as a resident of Tampa my whole life, and I also work and live in Ybor City. I live in Casa Oliva, another fantastic building, frankly, and yeah, that is all that I have to say at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll, public comment seems to be over, so commissioners can ask questions of the applicant.
Yeah, just as Ron had asked, could we take a look at the sections again and just kind of go over them a little more in detail?
Yeah, I'll let Louis handle the wall section for that. One other thing I want to talk about the signage too. I don't plan on putting, a big advertising sign out there for the company. I would just like to do something, classy and simple, maybe just the address or something like that, so that you don't have to worry about some big neon sign going there in the neighborhood. That was one thing that I wanted to interject on.
I guess the typical wall section is the one, can you hold it? Yeah, the typical wall section pretty much explains the entire concept, which is pretty typical, all the way around. What we basically did was the first two levels is going to be a brick veneer. We have a sample of brick veneer there, but the idea is to color the brick veneer, which is this right there. So level one and level one, which is parking, and level two will be a brick veneer, application, which you can see right here, and it goes all the way around, and it wraps this terrace that it's there. It also happens at the parking level and the first level of the unit. And again, it ends on the side as a, 4 feet wide. Now, the third level is gonna be the medium course. The medium course stucco with the lighter color. This is the brick with the lighter color. It's almost like a postmodern, touch to it. We start with the heavy dark color, and then we go light as it, approaches. So the second level is gonna be the third level. It's gonna be the medium course with the lighter color, and then we go to the last floor, which is the the fourth level, with the same color but a more fine coarse, type of stucco. Again, like I said, all this is typical. This is medium coarse, fine coarse. Is typical, and it ties up and it breaks up also the volume at the same time. So we use several elements. We use the color, we use the texture, we use the banding, and we push the volumes back and forth in order to accomplish that. Because the issue was, the client wanted to have 4 stories high, boom, like everyone usually does, kills a fly with one shot. But we went through several iterations to be able to manipulate this in a very good way, and we're really happy with it.
Can you take that explanation and then we'll go back to the wall sections as Ron had suggested, but run through the elevations that you have with that material explanation, because we don't have brick on all facades going down, so especially on like the east side.
The brick application?
Yeah, but what are we going to see? Because I know that we have a lot of stucco there on the east elevation. Does it change texture? Do we have brick? How is it broken up? Is it because the banding doesn't?
Maybe
go to the.
This will explain it better.
So you can kind of see the brick on the first 2 levels.
Yeah, the line drawings would be more effective.
No, you're talking about these elevations right here. Okay. Let's look at the front one first. Okay. Okay, the front elevation, as you can see, this first 2 levels is a brick veneer.
Right. That one's, I appreciate that one. That one's legible. I mean, I think we understand that that's kind of the basis of where you're coming from with the 2 stories of brick on both the office side and back there towards the residential side. We can see the medium stucco. I'd like to see the other sides of the building, the east-west sides where we don't have that stuff
Got it. Okay,
consistently.
so let's move to the west elevation, which is this one right here. What happened on the west elevation is the brick veneer was taken around the corner and it was stopped right at 4 feet. Then we have stucco this entire facade, which is the second level, with a medium coarse stucco finish. The third level also has that stucco medium coarse, and then the last level will be the fine coarse. Okay, the brick on that element, where's the mark? Okay, on the terrace, yeah. this element right here will be completely covered with brick veneer.
Right. I think that if you look at the west elevation, what we're getting at, or at least what I'm trying to get at, is especially on the residential side, I can see a little bit of the medium course at the third floor. That's the brick wrapping, and then I can see the medium course wrapping.
That's the medium course,
And
yep.
so, and then the rest of it's fine.
And the rest of it's fine, yes.
Exactly what this part is.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right.
And so the hatching, that particular hatch for the medium course stucco is not applied to the office portions where we would typically, I'm assuming we would see it. You
Yeah.
said it was on the second floor and the third floor, so that medium course kind of goes in through there and then wraps around and stops.
Yep,
Okay.
that's correct. It has a note here that says medium course stucco. Yes,
I got you.
definitely it goes there, and it's on the front of the loft, and then as it turns the corner, it dies forward.
Okay.
There's a construction joint, right there that
Right.
will. But you're right. The rest of it's a fine course stucco.
Okay.
And the same thing we did as we go around the rear elevation. The rear elevation, it's all the fine course, stuff. And it's noted on
The control joints there are kind of omitted, or?
they're faded.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to have them, so.
No, definitely.
Yeah.
That's-
And so that's fine as it goes all the way around, and then when we get to the west, or the east side rather.
When we get to the east side, then we have the fine course stucco, and then,
How do you turn the corner on your third floor, which has the medium course?
Yep,
The third floor,
there's not medium course here.
right, but if you're, that terrace that you have on the second floor, or for the third floor office, yeah, that has a medium course stucco on it. On that.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, and so.
Yes, it does. It'll end right at that corner.
Oh, okay, so you're using the stucco banding as the stopping and starting points
Yes.
of these different textures. So at that corner, you turn it. I've hijacked your comment.
That worked as well as the
Yeah.
sections in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
so that's fine. And then for the, do you have any more window details as far as what I was looking for in the sections as well?
I brought Bo was able to provide me the cut sheets, so I have them right here. Just a little bit larger.
Is that all you have? What are the other pages?
They're right here.
How did I put you?
I got two more.
Just put them on one over the other, see if they have any questions.
Okay. These are the cut sheets that were provided by the manufacturer, which is Eastern. It's the same window that I show you on the model.
This is the inspiration that we, this is, on 20th, right here. These two pictures.
So it's a pretty low profile metal window. Okay.
Here we have, vertical cross sections, head jam and seal details, installation. I spoke to the manufacturer, actually there in Sarasota, and I asked them if we can push the glass far back. They said the glass can be moved back, We're going after, some shade, even though these are energy, e-glass. We shouldn't be concerned about, energy efficiency, but just to get that shadow around the window. And that's the reason why I went with that band all the way around the window, to give it, more depth.
Shadow relief.
Because the case study that we looked at, they're almost flush. You're right, that profile is, the way it comes, if you build it the way it comes, you're only gonna get an inch of, shadow.
Thank you. No further questions.
Additional detail.
No questions,
Okay, thank you.
One question regarding the access to the parking garage. More traditionally, these kind of masonry buildings on which you're basing your design on tend to be pretty symmetrical, and you have two different size openings. I'm just wondering if that's being driven by something I'm not picking up, or could they indeed be two similar sized gates, or not gates, but openings into the garage? It looks awkward the way
Oh,
it's presented.
the openings that we had?
Yeah, if you could bring up the front elevation.
Yeah, the two garage openings should be symmetrical, but then the one to the left is just an access door that we're gonna have a key.
Right, but they're not symmetrical on the
Oh, okay.
on the elevation.
Okay.
They are not, because the wall that we're bringing all the way down to the ground, it's further.
Could you bring up the drawing,
to the
please?
east. You know what, the site plan is the best one to explain it. See, we have this wall that comes out to the edge of the driveway.
Right. Right, but you see in plan, it looks like your openings are symmetrical. If you could bring up your elevation now?
Yeah, what happens is this one is not at the edge of the driveway, but a little bit into the green.
Could you bring
Thank you.
put up the front elevation, please?
The front elevation. Yep, you're right. This one is narrower than that one, right?
If they could zoom in, but I'm not seeing it here on the, let's get that, yeah. So they're just slightly different? Or,
It looks like it's the same, it just has that notch
Okay.
that hasn't been discussed yet.
okay, then that's what I was gonna also get at. The notch is the brick portion of that wall notched to reflect the additional space you needed for the driveway opening? Okay, so it is symmetrical then?
Yep.
Well,
It's-
they're equal openings, it's
Okay,
not symmetrical.
Right, the equal openings, okay.
That's right, exactly.
Okay.
All right, thank you for the
Now,
clarification. It didn't appear earlier to be equal
Yeah.
openings. That was the only question I had.
Yeah, we tried to put those roll-off doors, just to match what these guys are gonna do, but transportation had a problem, so.
Okay, so explain that notch. I mean, what are we seeing there on the longest, the office building, which has that notch, which shows up in that elevation, but not on the west or east elevation? And it shows up in the section. Yeah.
See, what we have is our structural support is gonna be 1 foot in, so there's a little bit, the second floor will overhang, a foot.
Right, and so what is constraining you there that isn't constraining you on the other side when you get to the apartments?
On this side.
Yes.
If I push that structural column, flush with the exterior, we're gonna have grass on one side and grass on the other side. I'd rather put it flush with the parking spaces and then keep the rest of it, grass, which is about 3 foot, 3 foot more. That's the only reason. And
Because we're struggling for green space, right?
yeah, I mean, other than that. I
Okay,
mean,
so-
we can move it, but we'll be splitting the grass, and I guess we couldn't have grass on the inside where there's no sun or shadow.
Right, okay, that seems, I mean, in my mind, that's a little bit the tail wagging the dog at this point, but let me ask some other questions. You have one stair, right?
One set of stairs.
One set, okay. In some of the elevations, it looks like it's not covered. Some of the models it is covered. That's a metal roof that I think that you're covering it with. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're gonna be covering that.
Like a black metal roof?
Right.
It's an exterior stair?
It's exterior stair.
Okay.
Metal.
Exterior metal stair. You have one stair, which means that it's serving the furthest distance in those offices, right? And so you got to get out, you got to get to the south and down the stair and to a public way, because you have a number of windows that are facing that stair, which to me, I don't know which way you're going on the code research, but I don't know that those windows can be there in order to get the people out with just the one stair. So I would, if that needs to change, or if those are fire rated windows or whatever, that has the potential to affect the facade that we're seeing there. I know it's the south side on the alley, but I don't see how it works currently.
Yeah, on that south side, we're gonna locate, the plan to put the conference room. So we are gonna put a window. We might have to compromise on the sides because the fire code is gonna determine, what's the maximum size. If not, we can use wired glass. That's what we were thinking.
Is it your intent then to have that kind of balcony that is exterior, or that lobby, which seems to be exterior, right? That's fire rated between the living quarters and the office. Is that the intent?
Yeah, I spoke to the fire marshal, and he's asking 2 hour fire rating between the residential and the office.
Okay, so that means you probably won't have any windows on any of those facades.
Yeah, we might end up, though, I tried to get more, as much information as I could from the fire marshal.
Sure.
And he said, we'll still,
Yeah, I can appreciate kind of that portion of it, but I guess my point to the fellow commissioners
Yeah.
is that we've got variables here that are gonna change in the kind of articulation of the facade.
We don't have windows.
So you-
We don't have windows on the residential.
You're asking if there's windows on this side and this side?
Put the rear elevation up.
Okay.
But
Yeah, there's windows right there in front of the stairs.
Oh, yeah, these are the ones, these are for the office.
Right, but I'm saying that
But there are none for the residential. On the
right, but all of those windows probably won't be able to be there, is a concern, right? And so now it looks completely different. Not saying that it's a make or break, just kind of getting everybody up to speed on what's actually gonna be there, because, let's assume that you leave today, everybody's happy, then we go and look at it and say, well, I don't remember, why is it different? Anyway, my point is that you've got stuff that's gonna change the project that we are obligated to review, that's going to change after we review it, because that's not gonna happen.
Yeah, you see, that's the problem with this, with the process, that, we'll know about all those technical requirements
Right.
later, so.
Right.
There's nothing we can all do.
I agree with you on that. I just want to bring that to everybody's attention so that maybe we can get that ironed out and look at it further down the line. We talked about the stagger at the wall. Talked about the stairs and the windows. We talked about the roof. There's a roof over that. It's not in that elevation. I don't see a roof.
No, but it's on the rendering.
Right. Okay.
See it.
I just want to make sure I'm seeing it correctly.
There's some right there.
Now, the intent of the plan, I guess, on the back side, on the south side, you've got parking, and you've got the whole building that comes down onto the columns. Yes, exactly that one. And there's no walls or anything that separate off. How are you securing the site there?
With the fence, we're gonna fence the project. See, we have a little bit of a green, running, so we'll have a fence right at the property line to keep strangers from coming in
Okay.
on the alleyway, so.
I think that you have an opportunity there at that location to kind of bring that residential component down and land it with some brick, and secure that corner of the site, because
It's a mass.
the massing of it's really strange on the backside compared to the front side, because you've done, you've got this two-story brick front and opening that you go through, and then on the backside, it all kind of flies up into the air.
I like your idea because it's structurally makes sense.
Yeah.
We don't need to rely on two, columns on the very end, but.
Right, you
a
can-
wall. The only thing I would introduce is some kind of openings just for,
Yeah.
ventilation. The same thing we did on the east facade.
And is everything, I'm just trying to get, if I'm up on the 4th floor and there's a fire, I've got to go down the stair, go through the door, through my 2-hour rating, down the stair, and then where does the stair go? Do I have to go out back the front, or can I go to the alley, or how does that work? Because your front door is to the north, but all of the access to ingress to the building and egress from it is on the completely other side of the property.
Yeah, the stairs is pretty much doing this.
Right.
When you go-
But do I,
When
if,
you come down, you're out in the open here.
right, but if, let's say worst case scenario, right, the building's on fire, I'm just talking it out, and now I've got to go back up through the building that's on fire?
If you're on the, what level?
Any floor I come down, I got to go back by the building. I'm wondering if there's a way to egress to the south, or if there's, what's the strategy there?
Okay, well, the building is sitting right here.
Right,
So when you come out, you're actually on the driveway, and there's nothing up above.
right. And
So
there's,
you're not actually under the building.
so we don't have those gates anymore, so
That's right.
I don't have to maybe go underneath the.
That's why you don't have those gates.
Okay, I caught up with you. I guess those are my technical questions for the building. I think that there's a lot of banding and stuff that doesn't necessarily need to happen every floor, I understand that you maybe want to articulate and go from stucco to stucco, but you've got the 2-story volumes, and then you might have the opportunity to have, the 3rd and 4th floor come together. It's a lot.
They did banding?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on, and I think that some of it needs to be ironed out graphically, in terms of conveying your ideas to us and getting it on the record, and then as well as just studying it some more, because I think that when you turn around the corner there and stop the stucco textures, I think that that's working against you, because what you're doing there is you've got these discrete boxes, office and loft, and when you start to break them up and not make them read as boxes, I think that it works against you, like the way that the housing doesn't hit the floor, and the way stuff kind of turns around and just doesn't finish up. I think you're like pulling from both sides, and it's not working. I think that the north facade with the articulation at the pediment or at both sides is fine, but the west one is odd because it's not fronting the street. You would typically have that on the front of the street. So, I mean, I'd straighten out that parapet there. Mm-hmm. And you've got a great opportunity to articulate that side with a bunch of sunshades too, because as the sun goes around, you can shade those windows, because those are all going to get blasted at the end of the day. Yeah. And the way you have the massing kind of allows you to make that side more interesting. How do you, another minor point, but you've got all these you've got 2 terraces. They're going to need to drain. I'm sure that we'll have some scuppers in there that'll need to be coordinated with what you're doing. But I think that I'm excited for you guys. I'm excited for the energy that you're putting into the project. I think it needs a little bit more study, and I really think that the kind of the implications of the fire code and what that's going to do to the building is going to kind of I guess we probably need to see it again. I mean, those are my feelings.
I have a few other design comments too. Would it be appropriate to bring up now, or will we go into discussion?
I forgot where we're at.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think we're asking questions, but
yeah.
Let's go ahead and I think that you've been working with us as we've been talking it out here with you. if you'd like, we can close the public hearing and kind of sum up where we're at and then move forward.
Sure. I mean, not to get too much into detailing, but my one sort of comment because you do have the two separate masses, and I would have liked to see just a bit more articulation in terms of the differences between sort of the residential side versus the commercial side of the building. They look almost identical in that sense when they're used to a little bit different. And I think maybe some of the articulation you've been talking about between either the stucco or maybe the colors or the brick or something like that can be used to sort of distinguish the two masses a little more, to make them a bit more, to sort of distinguish their use a little bit. But
Yeah, the only thing to that is, we're dealing with
It's closed.
Yes, I agree. It's an exciting project, and I like the direction it's going. But it does seem like you're trying to do a little bit too much. Buildings in this more industrial area of Ybor City tended to be not as decorated. So I think you have an opportunity here to still accomplish what you'd like to accomplish in terms of creating a building of quality and of substance, but maybe with a little bit less articulation. That said, specifically on your west elevation, for instance, when you turn the brick and the texture, it falls into one of your small square windows in a very awkward, unresolved area. I mean, I think either you need to pull back the material further so that the quadrifoil window looks like it's in some kind of bay, and perhaps, to Commissioner Thompson's point, that it meets the ground in some way. Again, to give the building some kind of like masonry-looking mass, because that's what you're trying to do, is create a brick-clad mass around the bottom on which these other volumes kind of slip into. So that would also apply, I think, for me on the east elevation, where you turn, but again, just kind of superficially 2 feet. It seems to me like that kind of expression would be better off going back to where the building sets back to give the base kind of more of a heft. Also, just some suggestions. Other commissioners' comments about you're not really articulating between the office section or the residential section. That you could go either way, but when I look at the front elevations, you have very high ceilings because it is a loft building. But I'd like to see maybe some variation. It seems to me like you have an opportunity at the very top to maybe do higher windows, like maybe some clear stories above the where the balcony condition exists. If you went a little higher, did a clear story, it gives you a way to kind of terminate the vertical mass in an elegant way that also starts to reflect the fact that they're penthouse apartments or they're a higher ceiling back there. Also, and this is just an aside, it'll be probably in our notes, but the railing, I don't think we really have enough detail on the railings we're proposing. They seem to be continuous horizontals, but in reality, you'd probably have to have some verticals, and how do they die into the building? And then lastly, with the canopies, or let's see, you're calling them the metal canopies on the front, you have them in a very modern, detailed way where they hit the top of the windows. I think if you look at the district, a more traditional opportunity would be to raise them, express some of the masonry as sort of a punched opening in the masonry, and let the canopy be more decorative, just slightly above. And again, that would start to give that front a little bit more variation in how it's expressed. I know those are very specific comments. I don't know if we can put them in, but those were my feelings.
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead, I'm done.
We're trying here. There's a lot going on. It's a challenging exercise that you've embarked upon, trying to not have to ask for any variances and work with the FAR that you have. I think that there's some technical issues that we've talked about that are going to influence what we see. And I really think that there's some clarity that's needed between brick massing, cement plaster massing, or where you're having it, its articulation, and just making sure that it's all kind of wrapped together and consistent, because it's not. I think you still have some opportunities on the west elevations to clean that up and to add some interest. And I think that that notch on that east side isn't doing anything for the project and can come out and straighten it out so we have a crisp brick mass on the front that's articulated throughout.
It's not Chris though, because he has to notch it on that side.
Well,
so in a way, he's made it symmetrical. But
yeah, maybe we take out, if there's no gate, you don't need the middle column. You can just get a beefier column and still have the articulation. I think there's opportunities here. I don't think we're at the finish line. That's my personal opinion. Since we're still in, we have the opportunity for a motion now.
Mr. Chairman, I don't recall that we did rebuttal, or if we had rebuttal. I'm not sure. There was the questions from the commission, and I got a little bit lost in the process there.
We kind of closed up quickly and indicating that the applicant had, been working with us and answering the questions. But if there is something that you've heard that you don't feel like you've had an opportunity to discuss, I can open back up the public portion so that you can have a minute or two to maybe add on. But I think we're at a place where we can get a motion that the applicant can work with and respond to. It's up to you.
Yeah.
I know it's probably not correct. We just tried to make it as detailed as we could and make it as,
Right.
nice as we could.
But the question is, do you want us to open up the public hearing so that you can make that comment, or
No.
just wait until we have
I believe we'll fix some things and change some things and make it happen. So no, that's.
Yeah, those are good comments.
Okay, so we need a motion.
seems like we need a motion to continue, and problem is going to be to put what we've discussed into a motion, but I'll attempt to do that here. So, move to grant a continuance in case BLC 19-97 for the property located at 2309 East 3rd Avenue to the next regularly scheduled public hearing at 9 a.m. with the following: that the applicant address some of the design concerns brought up at this public hearing, specifically the amount of detailing in regards to the expression of the masonry base, the stucco higher floors, how those materials turn and are expressed at the ground level on the east and the west elevation, and also on the upper floors as well. Additional details regarding the light fixtures, the railings that are being proposed, the windows and how they sit within the wall sections at each level, the notch at the east corner of the building.
What, can you clarify the notch?
It appears that there's a notch on the eastmost side of the masonry base, but it doesn't appear
where we talked about the column placement.
Okay.
Yeah. So kind of clean up the ground floor facade in regards to the notched corner. And then also staff would like to just have more detail about the proposed minimal signing that you're going to be considering for the project. Did I leave anything out?
Probably. That's the motion as it stands.
Oh, I just wanted to add, look at the windows on the top floor and the comment that was made in regards to maybe making them higher on the top floor, just to express that.
We have a motion with conditions?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion with conditions that has been expressed. Do we want to add on to it at all? Okay. You have the opportunity to request an up or down vote or proceed forward with how the board would go with the motion.
Proceed forward with the continuance, right?
Okay, yes. Is that your?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. Do you understand the conditions that have been discussed? I would suggest that you get with staff after this and watch the tape and go through them. They're fairly all-encompassing, but they will be enumerated for you in the record.
Okay.
Okay. We have a motion. We have a second. We have an owner agent on board with that. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Nope. See you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I don't see any new business, so we are done.